Oh, man. This is what I get for doing a spontaneous stream. I didn't realize Ben was also streaming. Aw. I probably wouldn't have, because I don't like when like friends and other small creators are going at the same time I am. I don't like making the small communities that have crossover compete with like which one they would prefer to be doing. But if he's still going by the time I'm done, I'll raid him. Hey everyone, it's Connor Sheri Shaw. I have been simultaneously incredibly busy and not doing very much at all, because it's a lot of waiting. Okay, let me get to a screen where we can see this, legit, so that I can properly congratulate you. Okay, I'm gonna replay that notif. That reminds me, I gotta get stream labels up and running. It's been a hot second. Thank you so much, L. Holy shit, you're at 61 months and you got your apprenticeship done. I know how difficult that is. Our girlfriend Penny, Austin and I's girlfriend Penny, she had an electrician's apprenticeship. She finished about a year ago at this point, and is now a journeyman, I believe it is. Stream labels. Okay, there we go. It's not really working. Also, you can't really read it because my fan is there, because it's 99 degrees Fahrenheit here, which, to be clear, is around 34 degrees Celsius. I think it might be 35. Let me put this let me move this up where the curtain is, so this is more legible. I'll have a better setup for all this eventually, I'm sure. See, here's the thing. I've entered my journalist era. I don't know if you can tell by the state of my room and myself, but I have reached the point of obsessively writing about whatever topic it is I'm investigating, like I'm fucking info dumping on Tumblr, to the point that I can eventually make something I would consider more presentable. L, it is not letting me replay your subscription. I feel bad. Streamlabs just doesn't really work. Stream labels, it just isn't doing anything. I might have to overhaul all of this. Like, all of the software I've been using for streaming is starting to get more and more out of date, and stuff is moving on, and it's leaving me behind. It's really easy for you. It was for the job. That's sorry, that's incredible. That was literally the job that Penny was doing before she started her apprenticeship. Was tax filer. Kind of disappointed in the results, since you feel like your feeling was better than the actual grade, though you still passed. Hey, you did so well that the system's bullshit, like not good enough, not perfect rulings weren't enough to stop you from getting into there. Like, it's the equivalent of like earning enough, having enough money that if something goes wrong, you still have enough money for what you need for the day. Like, having that little extra on top helps. Having that little extra, like, all of those other things that you passed the apprenticeship for, that all accumulate together to, even if it is a barely passing grade, like, their bullshit nickel and diming of you wasn't enough to stop you. So congratulations. Yeah, Kraz, if you're playing with Ben right now, or maybe you're playing with Maria. I saw Killing Floor. Go and have a good time. I actually played a hearty amount of Killing Floor 1 myself when I was filming the Walled Garden video. Didn't use any of the footage from it, but it was a game I knew I could get out of the map in. But I couldn't. It didn't look visually interesting when I did it, because you were just kind of clipped inside of the wall, but the game looks more or less the same otherwise. So got out to map. Yeah, the out to map video. Maybe we'll watch that today, because I don't think we've watched that on stream together. And I've got so much, like, little things I can tell you about the production of that video. Maybe we'll do that. I've got time. Now here's why I've got time. Because the projects I've worked on this year were Walled Garden video, which is out. It's 33 minutes long. We'll probably watch it. I wrote an article earlier this year about AI called Ever After Reality. I'd highly recommend it. It's not that long. It's still meaty, but it's not that long, and it's still holding up. About how it doesn't really matter if businesses are aware that the AI hype is a bubble, because everyone else is still acting as though, despite that, we're gonna keep going anyways, because look at these numbers. These numbers are so great that we would like very much for this to be real, so we'll just do the behaviors of it being real. So every other business that you would normally work with in your production pipeline is also getting in on AI bullshit. So if you don't get in on it, you are now the person slowing everything down. You are now an issue. So a lot of companies basically just buy in due to FOMO. In fact, literally will cite fear of missing out as the reason that they are investing. It's crazy. After that, I wrote another article more recently, Trevor Project Part 2. Now, I have written 3 articles. If this is your first time hearing about this, welcome aboard, Mario. If this is your first time hearing about this, I have written 3 articles about the non-profit organization, the Trevor Project. Ace, hi! Where I have raised money for Trevor before. My 100,000 subscriber video, which is currently, I'm fairly certain, I think I have it set to private, because I dedicated all of the ad revenue in that video to the Trevor Project. And then I found all this shit out. So there were small talks of AI replacing our job in the branch. In the long run, conclusion, nope, because they can't replace the human factor and also the occasional complexity of German tax law. See, that's what I was going to cite too, is the problem with tax law, and this is very true in the United States, but definitely true in a lot of the world. Tax law changes multiple times a year. It changes multiple times a month. It often changes on the fucking daily. Like, lots of little changes are happening constantly. And AI looking through all of the, information that exists about tax law is inevitably going to be learning from outdated information at some point. Because what's put into a data model for it will be out of date and then contradicted by something down the line. And this is also why you shouldn't use AI to redirect texts from suicidal children, Trevor. This is why you shouldn't use AI to supervise your employees with Genesis, Trevor. If you are interested in reading some particularly vitriolic investigative journalism from me, I have 3 articles about the Trevor Project wasting billions, not billions, nope, back it up, millions. Those are 2 different things. Sophia, hello. Wasting millions of dollars on AI development, on suicidal child robots. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Elle. That's so sweet. See, I've been calling you Elle. I know Eric, but this is gonna be funny, and I'm sorry about it, but so many people in my community wind up changing their name either because they feel more comfortable going by something else or because they end up transitioning, that I often worry if I remember someone's name as something, I might be remembering an out-of-date thing, much like an AI reading old out-of-date information and not knowing if it's up to date or not. So I actually do get a bit nervous about, I can relate to that. Yeah, it's, I think what a lot of people say, I can't keep up with all of these changes. The thing they're actually worried about is, I am worried I'm going to look like a dumbass or offend someone that I'm not trying to offend. And if you are willing to be open and to talk about, what your limitations for knowledge of this are, most queer people aren't going to give a shit if you accidentally slip up and then correct yourself, or if they have to correct you and you go, oh, shit, sorry. Most queer people are dealing with that all the time anyways. And if you are just sincerely trying to get it right, it is better to get it wrong sometimes and then learn from those mistakes than it is to avoid the issue altogether by just never addressing people. Interpreting stuff that traditional tech cannot. See, yeah, like, I feel like I am of the opinion that all things being developed right now that are called AI could stop being developed, and humanity as a species would be much better off for it. I am also of the opinion that a lot of AI tech that exists is tech that was already being developed for years that is now dealing with the consequence of being associated with these large language model bullshit things. Meanwhile, you know, DLSS is pretty fucking good. I'm kind of surprised. I don't want to get off the topic of AI, but I do need to clarify. My old graphics card finally kicked the bucket. My 1080 is gone. I still have it in my closet, but its VRAM is bad. It crashes if it gets too hard of a load. I now have a 3060. That might sound like kind of a downgrade going from, if you know anything about NVIDIA cards, how they number them, those second two digits. That's going from the 80 model to the 60 model. But it was such an upgrade of generations, going from GTX to RTX, and also upgrading from 8 gigabytes of VRAM to 12 gigabytes of VRAM, which the TI card and the 3070 both do not have. That was pretty good. So using AI to, like, read through a lot of documents to find every instance of a certain word being said, including common permutations of that word. That is a harmless use case of AI. However, in order to get to a point where that can exist, you are also enabling all of these other non-harmless use cases of AI that require the same tech. But I'm aware in saying that, that's like me saying, can you think of all the bad things the internet could do? That's why the internet shouldn't exist at all. I don't think that, to be clear. But I also do think that we can't ignore how much the bulk of AI is just making currently existing systems more power consumptive to have an overall sloppier user experience. Yes, ChatGPT making up legal cases that was actually something I brought up in my AI article in Ever After Reality. Let me grab a link to that. Ever After. Oh, yeah, no joke, Eric, Baldur's Gate 3 was also the first game I started noticing those issues in. I was having occasional blue screens. I thought it might have been my RAM. It wasn't. Mentest came back clean, tried even switching out the sticks to different sticks, and was still getting crashes. And then when I found out it was my GPU, it was because Baldur's Gate 3, in Baldur's Gate, in the city, it would take me like 5 minutes to crash from walking through the city because it was loading so much stuff in. If I turned everything down to low, I could play the game for about an hour, and it looked like shit before it would crash. But now I can get back into it. Ozzy and I can finish our run with my Drow NB Bard and their Gith Zerai, thanks to a mod, monk. Yeah, okay, no joke. Okay, we've talked about AI for a good amount here, but let's move on because I want to talk about a positive thing. I'm just gonna grab my... Oh god, Ever After is an AI that exists. Christe Tabernac. I specifically called my article Ever After Reality because I thought it was such a stupid thing that sounded like something that would be pitched as a concept of, like, Ever After is a thing that is impossible to package and sell because it is always the future after this that's in the name, and that an AI company is literally calling itself that. Anyways, here is my article if you're interested in reading more of my thoughts about AI. So yeah, that's the thing, Sophia. Baldur's Gate 3 got me to play a CRPG which is a pretty big deal, because I normally don't necessarily have the patience for a CRPG, which sucks, because I love the writing of a lot of CRPGs. But the issue is usually in the format of it, the presentation of it, makes me legitimately wish I was just reading a book instead. Every now and then, especially now that I got my new graphics card. But, like, that little text box at the bottom of the screen, all of the information being on screen not usually being that relevant. It's like the sprites in the 2D world, the area you're in, and then the same generic image. It makes me, like, almost spite all of that, because I would prefer to be able to, in my own head, visualize the scenario happening and give it, like, the grandeur that it's implying. But I have this, like, obelisk on screen of the same sprite constantly reminding me, like, kind of taking me out of it. This was also my criticism of Shadowrun Hong Kong, which I love that game. But again, when you only have these, like, handful of sprites, or even just one for a character, it feels like I would rather just be reading this text instead of playing a video game where I get into video gamey headspace and then afterwards getting into, like, reading mentality. A game I really liked that did this well was Myst, where when you are reading books in that game, you are reading a book. It is a book you pick up and you are reading the entirety of it, and you go into, like, e-reader mode of I am now choosing to read. But Baldur's Gate 3's cutscenes really keep you engaged. I really do think it's the motion capture. Because full voice acting is one thing, but full voice acting only gets you so far if you're still staring at the same blank thing. The motion capture animation in Baldur's Gate 3 makes it feel like I am playing a tabletop RPG more instead of a computer game. And I like playing tabletop RPGs. I like sitting around a table and with friends and all of us coming up with a story in real time. And it feels like the game is playing along with you instead of presenting to you. It really is like the difference between a play where everyone is just standing around on stage versus where they're trying to put a little bit of emphasis into it, like trying to put their put their body into the performance. It makes you more compelled to watch it, and then as a result you can get lost in it and more immersed in it, and then, oh hey, 50 hours have passed. And we're still in Act 1. we aren't still in Act 1, thankfully, fuck. But, okay, what is another game I didn't think I was going to be playing as many hours as I was, recently? Like, there's a heisting game that's called Payday 3 that I've had 150 hours in, but, more interestingly, I want to talk about Crime Boss Rockay City for a second. So... It is no secret right now, although it may be a reveal to some of you in chat here, that I am working on a video about Payday 3. I am making a probably gonna be north of an hour-long video about the concept of Payday, the thing that the game has become now, and what it started as, and the sort of rewriting of history that, from different perspectives, that both the studio is trying to do of what Payday is and was, but also definitely fans and haters alike are doing of Payday, of reimagining what the game was like back then. Like, that half-perfect memory in your head of playing Payday the Heist or Payday 2 when it was good is both not as true as you think it is, but also not nearly as wrong as, if we're being quite honest, the studio would like you to think it is. Like, it kind of benefits Starbreeze for people to go like, well, Payday 2's launch was rocky too. Payday 2's launch was rough. It wasn't this rough. It wasn't this rough. It wasn't this bad, man. Nostalgia's a hell of a drug. It can also be, there's like rose-tinted glasses, but then there is also like the anger of seeing other people's glasses as rose tinted when you're just seeing glasses and yours are also rose tinted. Also, thank you. Yeah, the facial hair has been fun. I never really saw myself doing facial hair, but I'm liking it. Yeah, people are mean to the wrong people about the fans of Payday are complaining to the wrong individuals. I do think it would be pretty bad and potentially legally dicey for me to just post the address of Embracer HQ, but they're not going to exist as Embracer anymore next year. They're going to be split into 3 different groups. So there's that. Deep Silver and Pals, or whatever the fuck. Yeah, like, hey, the developers of Payday 3, they know. They're aware it's kind of clunky. They're aware. The higher-ups aren't. And also, all of that said, I'm going to be defending the devs a lot more in this video than I think a lot of people expect me to. But they aren't fucking blameless here. There's also a certain amount of, like, not realizing you've already lost too many people. What I mean by that is, there's a certain panicked state that games that flop like this tend to get into of... It's essentially another form of crunch of, okay, we have to make this game good, so we have to work even harder at doing the same things we were already doing, but we have to do them faster and worse and sooner, or else people will get mad. When the thing that actually works is what Darktide did, what Redfall barely got to do. That's fair. Of, like, do a massive, like, oh, you all don't like how this game was trying to be. All this bullshit around it trying to keep you in this, like, this is the one game you care about. We will tone that down. We will change that. We will overhaul it to make it a more enjoyable interactive experience. Payday is almost doing that. They are acknowledging there's a need for an offline mode. There's acknowledging the need for the servers to not suck as bad as they suck. And they've acknowledged there's a need for more maps. And these are already the things they were doing in the first place. Server maintenance, new levels. The fucking offline mode is hilarious. They're treating it like this whole new beta. It's been in the game since launch. If you went to the dev build of it, it worked this whole time. It had glitches, much like Payday 2's fucking, like, peer-to-peer has glitches, much like other game I'm going to talk about for a moment, Crime Boss Rockay City. Y'all, I have 33 hours in this fucking game. I have the same feeling with this game that every time I launch it, that I had whenever I went to talk to my buddy, I shouldn't say his name, whenever I went to talk to my buddy who sold drugs, and asked for another bottle. Of like, God, am I really gonna do this to myself again? Fuck it. And then go back in and have a terrible experience at first, and then lower my standards, and then get high, and then have a great time. Crime Boss Rockay City, I have a million things I could say about it, and I'm going to in the Payday 3 video. We're going to be talking about it in the Payday 3 video. It's heroin, and it does just as much damage to you. It is a racist, misogynistic, homophobic, gross, like, half-remembering of the 90s that is more interested in making celebrities that the developers and financiers were particularly interested in dance than have them actually give a performance. It is also a surprisingly good roguelike game that has way more stuff to do than Payday 3, and the gunplay isn't specific, like the gunplay, the movement, it's not specifically bad. It is more specifically dated. This is a game out of 2013. It's very strange. But I like a lot of games from 2013. I like a lot of 90s movies. There's a lot of charming stuff going on there, but you have to deal with the grossness to get to it. I would say if you are someone who really, really likes Payday 2 and is disappointed thoroughly by Payday 3 on a fundamental level, like plays worse, plays different, is going away from you being like a super powerful individual unit to it being more of a balanced, like, cops, like, there's 4 of you and there's a lot of them, so you have to use your equipment to be able to fight back. If you want back hitting up a bunch of jewelry stores in a row and saying some slurs, okay, that's not fair to say, but hearing some slurs said to you, then, yeah, like, it recreates that Payday 3 experience. It is legitimately fun to hop into a lobby with friends in Rockay City and do a run of like 5 random missions in a row that are like connected to one another vaguely, and to be like, oh shit, it's the jewelry store. Oh, we're getting jumped by gang members this time. Like, it's recreating that experience of Payday 2 of, okay, yeah, this map, I know what I'm doing. Oh shit, there's something new here. And it's not burning all of that as fast as Payday 3 did, because there's actually like something like 100 plus different scenarios that exist in the game, because they are willing to reuse their fucking maps. They're willing to use a downtown city map for like 4 different objectives and just put shit in different places. Honestly, I didn't realize much grossness with the game in my time playing it. Did you play the single player? Did you... Payday 3 doesn't seem interested in it. Payday 3 is so interested in having these big cityscapes of like, it's New York, baby, that the closest they get is they will use the same block of a street down like in a far distant area where cops spawn that you, the player, can't access. It's the players that hate it when... I've got a whole runner about this in the video, talking about how they should reuse maps, and if anyone's mad about it, I know who they can blame. And it's me. I'll talk about it more when I get there, because I want that to be a big thing. But, Rockay City brings back slurs I haven't heard since the 90s. Since, like news clips from the 90s. Obviously, I was born in 97. It's decided that racism against Italians is actually a requirement by default. It treats Kim Basinger as... It is... Wait, hang on. Is it Kim Basinger? Double checking. Yes, it is. Okay. It treats her as a sex object in the most literal way, and then the heist where they give her an actual role to like be involved is the snuff one, where it's a boat full of like dead strippers that you get to look at. Fucking... It's gnarly a lot of the time. It's got a mid-best in it, too. The guy who played Jar Jar Binks, he plays Chase in that game. And he's fun. He's just putting himself into the role, even if the thing they asked him to do is do a stereotypical Jamaican character. Like, do the thing that in the 90s, if you said someone was Jamaican, that they would expect to think of. Did someone play too much Hotline Miami on their team? It's definitely got some Hotline Miami vibes. I would compare it sooner to, like, GTA, if I'm being honest, but without the Rockstar writing. Like, Rockstar is pretty good at writing nuanced, complex characters who are unlikable, but in a way that you can sort of understand how they got there, and you can still be endeared to them at the parts of the game where you're expected to be. Jesus. Seeing Damien Poultier on the writing staff, I can only hope, because there were 3 people who wrote this game. I can only hope that essentially what happened there is it was worse before he got involved. like they hire Chains' VA to come in and play one of the characters. And yeah. I was watching Austin play through Red Dead 2 again recently, and seeing the way they portray Dutch is fascinating. Like, I think maybe I can respect it more because I grew up in like county areas where like I would deal with a lot of American like redneck like kind of douchebag characters. I'm not saying that's what Dutch is, but it's the same sort of guy. It's the same kind of guy of very bombastically going to keep doing my thing and very happy to get you involved in it. And if you do anything different, he gets mad at you and why are you trying to change my way of life? But most of the time they're just trying to crack jokes and have a good time. They're a good old boy. A good old boy. Yeah, like Red Dead 2's writing is crazy. It's so sharp and consistent. Like it's fascinating how like much they pack in there. Also, fun little animation trick I noticed last night. If you ever are watching Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption 2, anything, let's see if this keeps for GTA 6 too. A trick Rockstar likes to do to make cutscenes feel like they have, like the area you're in the world feel like it matters and cutscenes work in the world. A little trick they like to do is they do some motion capture play with an object in the scene. A doorway, a window, a car, a tree, something like that. It is an object that, for the motion capture that they're doing, they can literally just have there be like a block there. And they'll have characters like lean in door frames or like open a window or look out of a window. They'll have a character like press up against a tree and rub it and look up. They do this shit all the time. All the time. It's like the BioWare 3 camera angle thing. Once you notice it, you won't unnotice it. They have their motion capture actors all the time interact with like a human-sized thing that they can then put that motion capture data wherever they need to in the world and just find, okay, the door frame for this building will be where that is. This car is where it is. Looking out of your mocap window to say, hello, hi, welcome aboard. Thank you, Jay. Oh my gosh, I was just talking about Crime Boss Raquet City. We were playing it last night. By the way, all the footage I got is fucking bunked. I'm so mad. All that footage I recorded last night of us playing is black. It's just black screen. I'm so fucking mad. It's the only one that did it, and I have to assume it's because I turned off DLSS while I was playing. Like, that must have fucked with something. So we're gonna need to play the game again, together again soon so I can get more fucking footage of multiplayer. You're fixing a Game Gear. Fuck yeah. I am doing pretty decently. Talking about all the projects I've been working on. Oh god, hearing the Outer Wilds theme. I have my guitar here, but it's not tuned. I wonder if I could play the theme again. I really want to get into playing guitar more, but carpal tunnel, baby. I want to talk about what I'm working on going forward, because that Payday 3 video is happening. I'm gonna say expect. Thank you, Square. Oh wow, that's so out of place. Let me fix that. Very late. It's okay. You don't gotta worry about it. I'm doing really good. I want to say Square. I was just talking about Payday stuff. Video's probably gonna be November, is my guess. It might be sooner than that, because I legitimately want to give Boys in Blue time to come out. They have announced more things they are intending to do, and I want to give them a proper chance. Hang on, let me check something. Payday 3 release date. So according to the internet, it was 5 days ago. I love the internet. Okay, September 21st. Yeah, I can't promise it'll be ready by September. This is a long-ass video that's gonna require multiple days of shooting. Fucking Google Gemini bullshit. Yeah, this is a long-ass video that require multiple days of shooting. And the other thing is that Austin and I would like to get married before then. Like, we want to be married before the video comes out, because I would like to be able to refer to him, if I bring him up in the video, which I'm sure I will, as my husband. Still waiting for our fucking new IDs to arrive. So, yeah, we were supposed to have been married like 2 weeks ago at this point. We had a day planned. You're quite looking forward to Boys in Blue, but you're a weirdo with 532 plus hours of Payday 3, so maybe I'm an outlier, shouldn't be counted. You're an outlier, but you should be counted, because developers are hoping that they can get as many players as possible to become that. You're not a whale, though. I want to make that clear, Square. You aren't a whale. You are really enjoying the product that they made for you. They are, however, hoping that they will get people playing that many hours who will literally buy the new DLC no matter what. Like, don't care, we'll buy the new DLC. They'll look at people like me, like I used to be, where I paid $20 to get a glowing mask because I wanted to support them. Wedding stream when? Fuck, we're definitely going to be doing streams together. So that's the thing. July, this coming month. It would be sooner were it not for Marina recently had abdominal surgery. She is okay. It's just, standard health procedure problems. Won't talk too much about it, but she isn't really in a place to stream for another couple of weeks. She's still recovering. But once she is ready, which should be sometime in July, probably middle of July, we plan to start up Apollo Justice 2. Or is Dual Destinies the last one? Or is that whichever one is between Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney, and Dual Destinies, or like the second one in that trilogy. Time sure does fly. It is great. Oh, Spirit of Justice is the last one. Gotcha. So yeah, Dual Destinies will be coming up next then. I bought it on Steam. We're gonna stream it. We're no longer using the emulator. No need. Then it's Great Ace Attorney. You are correct. They have announced that they're going to be bringing forward the investigation game. They're going to localize it, which is cool. Which also definitely means we need to get to Great Ace Attorney sooner rather than later. Which is also good because my sister and I have been looking for more mystery stuff to do together. And here's the thing. Austin normally can't really stand the sort of like old school British like London setting, like the Sherlock Holmes setting. That's not his thing, which is why it's gonna be so fucking funny to make him do it anyways. Oh man. Yeah, we already streamed Apollo Justice back in 2020. God. Yeah, it's been so long. Too many things happened. Other stuff came up. Life changed. The course of my life changed a bit. Austin should voice Herlock Shlomes. Fuck, maybe. Maybe it would be so fucking funny. Oh, man. I might also, at some point, after we're done with all of the Ace Attorney games, Ghost Trip could be a fun one to stream, too. I haven't played it. I've seen it be played a bit, but it's the same kind of writing, and the mechanic really interests me, and it's on Steam. The Prosecutor in Great Ace Attorney 1. I haven't played 2 yet. Ooh. Oh, that's the other thing worth knowing. Austin has played all of the Apollo Justice games. He had already, before we streamed them, played all of them on his own time. But he never finished Spirit of Justice. He never got to the end of Spirit of Justice. So there will be stuff he does not know going into that. There will be totally new stuff for him. Yeah, Ghost Trick looks so fucking interesting. It looks like the kind of game I would have loved if I had owned it. Okay, what else? Because at some point we will get to the other stuff. Okay. How many of you all in the chat have seen Dancing on the Walled Garden? Have seen my most recent video essay? It's totally okay if you haven't. I'm not gonna be offended. I just also don't want to, like, go, let's watch it together if literally all of you have already seen it. Probably one of your favorites of all time. Interesting. Good to know. Like, everything I've read about it has told me that I would be interested in it. Phoenix Wright re Professor Layton. I played the Professor Layton games when I was younger, so that might actually be a fun stream to do at some point. It's been a while, but you liked it. You haven't watched content far too long. Should fix that. I watched it a while back. It's not fully fresh. All right, tell you what. Let's see how this shit's aged, cause I like to think I make evergreen videos. I've also got to be real fucking careful when I screen share, because, again, I'm in my journalist slop era. I have so many tabs. Some of them are definitely identifying, and some of them are identifying about other people. So I will instead screen share the local video from my computer. Go to the crypt. I have a folder on my computer where I keep, copies of all of my videos, and it's called The Crypt. Sheri Shaw leaks. Like, here's the thing. I don't know what could be interesting about me at this point that I don't already openly talk about. Like, y'all are gonna find out that I used to soap. I'm pretty sure I've talked about that before. You're gonna see the tab of when I was investigating soaping. Because I thought about doing a write-up about soaping and decided, like, this is the least cool thing you could possibly be doing. Spell it with a K? Nah, it's just the crypt. I was thinking, like, Crypt Keeper sort of vibe. If Assange could get away with it? Yeah, didn't he plead guilty? Was it a plea bargain deal to not be prosecuted in the US? Was that it? The thing Sonic does at Sonic 2, grinding on rails with your fucking, like, bent shoes, to, like, make sparks. It's like skating, but you can't skate on the ground. Alright, I am going to add window capture. Hey, it actually recognized it by default. Cool. Rad. Capture audio. Well, it's just gonna... Sorry, hang on. That's very strange to me, the idea of capture audio from window. Like, isn't that already what OBS does? Okay, whatever. Yeah, we can actually go to 16:9 games to do this. How about that? Instead of game capture... properties, capture that. Will this work? Will this work? I do actually have a 4x3 scene. Oh, I don't think it's gonna work actually. Nope. Okay, then we'll do it the way I was gonna do it in the first place. Bump. Hi, there's me again. Let me make this smaller. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do is, this video is gonna be there, and I will occasionally come up here to talk to you about it. Are you pogging on stream in that image? Webcam's a bit off. It's fine. All right, this is real streaming. Let's talk about this video because I have a lot to talk about with this video. Let's just start watching. I've got a story to tell you. It's about a classic game, but not in the way you might think. See, I was born in 1997, so when I talk about having played Ocarina of Time as a kid, you gotta have a proper context. We had that special GameCube Collector's Edition, released years later. My first Zelda game was Wind Waker, so I was traveling backwards in that game design timeline. So, we're kids playing OOT, going through the infamous Water Temple, confusing and difficult. Okay, for real, this is so stupid. Hold on a second, I'm gonna fix this. This is so dumb. I gotta take myself a little more seriously than this. I can just do this. Paste. And then bring it down. And then I gotta move the camera, apparently. No, not like that. There we are. Okay. 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 Can you tell this stream wasn't planned? Can you tell I just decided to spontaneously start streaming? Right. Nope, that's the wrong piece of the UI to move. There we go. That's more like it. My sister was consulting a walkthrough whenever we got truly lost, a benefit of having played the game years on. So I'm using the iron boots to drop down into the drenched depths. But then, as I snap the camera around a corridor, I notice this open sea, this color change. So I actually want to talk about this for a second here, this shot. Because if any of you out there are ever doing
camera around a corridor,
you gotta consider.
I notice
like
this.
It is very hard to make visually clear to someone when you are trying to talk about information that almost everybody would discard, right? When I say this, I realize, like, most people are gonna think I'm talking about the clam. And I originally had in the script, no, not the clam. And then, like, no, that kind of distracts from the energy and the flow I'm trying to do here. So I decided the thing that was most useful to do here was to be willing to break from the visual medium that I was passively using in order to actively show what I'm doing here. Which is to say, I have this 4x3 blurred, like, margins thing that I'm doing for the sides. And I break from that to be able to zoom in on more void that isn't actually there, but I added there. But to the viewer, it gets the point across,
camera
right?
around a corridor, I notice this open sea, this color-changing void in the middle of nowhere. Eye-catching.
It's surprisingly difficult to get people to pay attention to things they're very quick to disregard.
Pinks and greens meant to be ignored, since it's just the game's out-of-bounds area. And do you want to know what I thought? I bet I could get over there. Because when I was that age, I didn't think...
So this shot, I feel so bad because Austin was literally crouching the whole time filming this. Hey, Silver. Welcome aboard. We're watching my new video. And I had him stand up with me.
Thought, I bet I could get over there.
And then all of this was just manually keyframed. I just painted in pink for a couple of frames.
Because when I was that age, I didn't think critically about game design.
Hard
I
cut.
couldn't differentiate what a game was trying to show me and what it was just incidentally caught up on. I thought I could swim around outside of the temple. I spent a solid 30 minutes, much to Marina's dismay, looking for some kind of door or passage, some mechanism of the game to escape its bounds. And I never did find it. But what I did find was a passion for getting...
It is crazy seeing myself here, by the way, because I look like a different human being to myself right now. Like, the hair, the vibe is just totally different. But it wasn't that long ago. God, look at this fucking trash city. It's fucking trash sprawl that I live in. God.
Out the map.
I love it. out the map. Now we're all gonna pretend that I remembered to put the H in authority, and we're gonna move on from one of, in my opinion, the picture that I based this off of is my favorite picture I've ever taken. There is no pedestrian sign right next to pedestrian crossing sign with the indigenous anti-fascist movement sticker sprawled on top of it, like sticker slapped on it. Mwah. Mwah.
If video games, media in general, is asking us as an audience...
Also, if you're wondering, by the way, all of these like pink like flicker effects that I do, I accomplish this just by using still images and then giving them some motion and a little bit of camera fuzz to make it seem like it's footage. It's no more complicated than that.
If video games, media in general, is asking us as an audience to suspend our disbelief, to step outside of ourselves and be immersed in the show, then what happens if something goes wrong? When it does? You've heard the phrase, the show must go on, but some mediums quite literally do.
Would you believe me if I told you this video was originally like 4 different video ideas I had that I combined together because they had the same loose topic of the thing where you are aware that it's fake, but you can still engage with it based off of real knowledge. Also, this background here is literally my carpet, this rug here on the ground, sprawled up over my bed, and then the camera we just brought in tight, and I'm just sitting in a chair in front of it. That's all it is, just a carpet on a bed. But it looks good though, doesn't it? I'm actually pretty happy with how the crop turned out.
The software that makes up a video game is liable to
take care, Tears. Bye-bye.
Keep running even if you quite literally do. The software that makes up a video game is liable to keep running even if you escape its projected walls, jumping out of bounds to places where, if you're lucky, there's...
Yeah, it is a carpet. Yes, that background is a carpet. I wanted black, blue, gray, and whites. Like, I wanted the colors people associate with cityscapes, with like urban sprawl. And I looked down and realized I have a fucking carpet that was exactly that, because I love that aesthetic.
The secret level, or a cute little Easter egg. More likely, however, forcing your way out of a play area rewards you with disappearing textures and half-rendered rooftops. And yet, as far as the game is concerned, you're still playing it. You're still in the confines of its code, though you're risking a crash. A program behaving unpredictably isn't comparable to, say, a play in which an audience member jumps onto the stage claiming they're Godot and have finally arrived. They'll shut down the play. But a video...
Where are my Godot heads out there? Hey, where are my theater appreciators? Where are my play appreciators
game will keep running until the player hits some kind of invisible trigger, a clip or flag in the programming sense that instantly kills the player and respawns them, or maybe even advances them to the next level as a failsafe. If the player can sneak their way around these points of security, though,
I'll admit I cheated
then
here.
The out of bounds are theirs for the playing, until they get caught or get bored or shut it down.
I cheated here a little bit because I wanted to have footage of showing the game killing you for going out of bounds and it not killing you for going out of bounds, and I had already earmarked so much of the footage I had of going out of bounds for other parts of the video that this is something I accomplished by jumping in the same place over and over and over again, and your head clips out of the map, but I did not physically get out of the map in any meaningful way here. I just cut out the frames where I'm falling back down to the ground. So it looks like that.
All of these options, however, are decisions made by humans, developers accounting for potential problem areas where players could get stuck, or players choosing to re-engage with the game's intended fiction.
I did actually think about specifically saying Godot, like how it's technically supposed to be pronounced for the play, waiting for Godot, but I thought people would have made fun of me for that because Godot is the more known pronunciation in the United States, and people love making fun of me for getting pronunciations wrong.
Uniquely, however, the players can move beyond the scope of what the developers deemed possible, move in and out of the game's fiction as they see fit, discover things that QA testers probably noticed and were ignored about.
We would often find that either the risk of fixing a bug or the time it would take weren't worth it, especially when we were doing something really uncommon. See, obviously I get that. It's just what is uncommon now in games when like everything is a wall that you're meant to rev up against.
So long as the controls are still working, a player can find their own kind of presence in the world. The mechanisms of movement still function, it's the world they're moving in that's broken. And while this isn't a gameplay mechanic in most agreed upon senses, it is nevertheless gameplay. There's no moderator there to stop them from calling it that. Any systems in place to prevent misbehavior are hollow threats once the player is outside of the game's rules. Unlike a movie which stops, a play which is called off, the video game continues to operate under prior pretense, its control scheme and UI and music, as the player steps into their own decided upon game.
I literally cheered out loud when after clipping into the map the exact way I was hoping I would, getting pushed with a shield into the map. The first shot I fired got me a challenge completed. I was like, let's go! I was so excited.
Hopscotch and hollow blocks. A new
Hopscotch and hollow blocks.
Let's draw a circle. It can be hard to make it symmetrical, but let's just try to make it at all, yeah? Inside this circle are all of the things that make a game immersive, where emotions for characters we know are fiction can still bring real tears. Inside this circle, we all agree to certain
surprisingly difficult
rules,
to move your hand in a
rules,
circle,
as to allow us to partake in play with limitations unlike reality. You need to run around these plates, but only after hitting the ball.
All of those, by the way, are tape, loop, and recorder and feedback noises, if you're wondering. All those little sounds I used to make the circle feel animated.
Ball with a stick in midair, and nobody in the stands gets to help. The promise of a murderer, a werewolf, confined to paper cards that still let betrayal sting. Real terrain in the scale of combat with plastic guns that fire foam darts. Getting tagged means you're out, but it's not the dart that enforces the rule, it's the people.
To make that shot feel a little more like, oh, that whizzes right past the camera, because it really does, I layered in the sound recording that I normally just nix completely from my phone, which is what's filming this, because it went right past the microphone on the phone, so you could hear it whizzing like.
In this space is play. This entire concept could be called the magic circle, but it doesn't have to be. Confining ourselves to a single concept would be alienating. While Johan Huizinga,
This was me after I wrote the whole fucking video, and after I had recorded it, finding an article that would have been so good to read during the production of the video, because it talks about a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. It doesn't have the same overall point that I'm making, because that is very much something that has become an issue since this game came out, or since this article came out, fucking 06. But this article was a fascinating read. Like, really digging into, like, okay, so what even is a game anyways, by this definition of what play has to be in order to not just be considered like a normal behavioral activity for it to specifically be play. It's fascinating.
As Homo ludens is the pointed source of this concept's name, as writer Hector Rodriguez aptly points out, Huizinga's application of the magic circle is a bit prescriptive rather than descriptive, treated as though the social aspects are themselves somewhat innate to life with high intelligence. I'd argue it's a little more freeform than that. For more on this, you can read the article or pick up Jesper Juul's Half Reel, a book all about this concept I only learned about after recording this video! Maybe you know this feeling, these passively agreed upon rules, as something like suspension of disbelief, or I guess even committing to the bit. The actions all participants agree to, societal and structural, to participate in something that reality does not provide by default. Whatever this nebulous feeling is called, it's real. You can capture it. You can
all those little, I didn't intend for that little capture it thing, but it looked so good in the edit, I kept it.
Even record it. A let's play of a story-driven game containing all of the player's emotions and
we'll be getting back to you, fuckhead. You're in one of these cases, and I know we are going to be dealing with you.
decisions. Live streams in which the chat is just as engaged despite not having control. The people watching at home. They're a little further away from the action, but all the same, they're still part of the game. Part of our memories, our love of games. The audience isn't playing by the same rules as the players, but they are playing by rules. This circle, magic or otherwise, ends naturally when the game concludes. It is only called preemptively by extenuating circumstances. For example, and for our purposes, when a player's actions are so interruptive as to make the intended game impossible. But people cheat at games and get away with it, don't they? Enhancing their performance or automating their aim.
Okay.
High scores get...
Okay, I gotta talk about this for a second, because this joke went over everybody's heads, and that's fair. I knew it would go over people's heads. Forsaken was a Counter-Strike player who got... a competitive Counter-Strike player who got caught cheating at a tournament. And the software that he was loading onto the computer with, if memory serves, it was a USB drive that he snuck in, was, to disguise it, named Word.exe. So, install Word.exe, gotta get Word.exe installed. Motherfucker just installed Word.exe. Became a shorthand for a couple of years in the Counter-Strike community for someone is turning on their hacks. And to have the little pop-up window be named Word.exe, where I explained, like, yeah, I'm aware he got caught. I'm not saying he didn't get caught. That's why I'm showing this to you. The Word.exe incident. Yes, that's what that's what I was referencing here. So that's why the little pop-up text that I give is Word.exe.
Faked, fans invent false rumors of secrets that persist today.
Under
These
the truck
people
you
are
find
still
Sonic.
players, though ones who are deferential to a detrimental definition of play, ruining it for everyone else. Audience members can do this too. Ever heard of stream sniping or watch a fan run onto the field during a ball game? They're all breaking the rule.
Taito, welcome aboard. We are watching my most recent video.
But not their own fun. Not unless they suffer consequences.
So,
What is it about?
this was a spontaneous decision I made because I was aware that I am probably going to struggle to have enough footage of getting out the map. What if I recorded the thing I do like almost every single day, my own version of Get Out the Map? And ultimately the reason why in video games I enjoyed trying to get out of bounds so much, it's for the same reason that I like parkouring. It's for the same reason I like getting physical places in cities that you aren't normally allowed. 'Cause it's fun. And it's also nice to see a location by a different metric. To look at a fence and go, how could you instead be a ladder?
Defying authority that's so alluring. Why
Just
is
holding the
loitering
phone doing
somewhere
this,
you're not
no GoPro.
technically allowed more appealing to some than designated occupation space?
Definitely a stupid decision.
See, I'd argue once you pass that first threshold of criminality, trespassing, you're already outside of the law. Why not do some other fun shit while you're there? That's why as kids we'd smoke cigarettes on the roof of the abandoned convenience store. If we were caught, we were caught. The only punishment we could get was
Fence.
losing further autonomy, and thus there we were most free. So obviously life at large is more complicated than that. Plenty of laws exist for great reason.
Were somebody to defy literally all rules for the sake of it? Ugh.
There's a road one could go down there that winds up deep in Libertarian County, so let's just remember restraint is key. We're talking about games here.
That joke was originally meaner. I made it a little less mean only because I remembered that a lot of my audience is outside of the United States, and libertarian really does mean a different thing in the United States than it does in the rest of the world, and I would argue a much, much grosser thing in the United States. Not to say that I agree with libertarian ideology in general, I certainly don't, but it means a real specific thing in the US.
When software is creating its own limitations.
It's like our own version of cunt, right? It means a different thing.
A video game enforcing its own rules. Who exactly is ensuring compliance other than the player and the game's own expectations? If you were to find somewhere a developer forgot just the right corner or wall or prop, you could exit this space into the void of the unintended. Walk on the fine line between playing and cheating. And if you're careful, the circle remains unbroken. The program will keep running with the assumption that you're playing along. Then, as you want, you can walk back into the true play space.
What is up, another 3?
Pick up where in the game's plot
You you could have probably used footage from a speed run to showcase bounce breaking. I wanted to minimize how much specific other people's footage I used. What I mean by that is like other people accomplishing a thing through footage of showcasing how to do that thing. Cause I would have felt kinda skizzy about like ripping someone's video that is, here's how to get out of bounds in this way. What I did do is I did have to look up a couple of out of bounds tutorials for Halo 2 to find a place where I could actually fucking get out of bounds. When they code an insult into non-insult looking words. Fallout New Vegas speed. I'm also on that Bethesda note. I remember watching a Morrowind speed run that was like get your jump and speed up to like you stack error overflow them to make them as high as possible, and then you can just jump once and go flying across the fucking world. Audio anomaly detection. I'm not gonna scream my favorite word. I have neighbors. Scream. I don't want to peek the mic. What is my favorite word even, though? You know, as a kid... Okay, I have actually got an answer here. As a kid, I was obsessed with the word onomatopoeia. onomatopoeia. I was obsessed with that word because it was such an interesting concept of a word to me, of a word to describe the sounds that animals make. A word to describe a thing that we have words for, but because textually saying that word out loud implies that you are doing a vague... Yeah, all noises. This was my understanding as a kid, that's fair. But implies like, saying the version of the sound out loud, like bang or meow or crash, implies that you are making a, like, attempt at doing a vague impression of that thing. But then a word like this comes along to clarify that there is a line of what a word sounds like versus what a word actually sounds like. That's interesting to me. It's the kind of shit that makes English work, when you have these words that mean a specific thing that you can bring up in these contexts. And it's a nice catchy word. Onomatopoeia! You left off, or somewhere you'd prefer. What was that George Carlin bit? No one's ever been arrested for screaming topography! To be let off. The circle only shouters when the game is shut down or otherwise soft locks, but in doing so, there are no longer bounds to be outside of. Consequence free. Know that I'm not arguing in order to make games out of games, you must first literally get outside of their maps. The bulk of games don't feature movement in a way that allows for the specific kind of escapism. Or also, like, the difference between the word, even, like, because language shifts, difference between the word woof and going whoop, like, that is the difference between an impression or a word that is itself doing the impression. It's a very fascinating concept of language that really made me reconsider certain words in a way that I think lends itself to how I got to my writing style today. It's just my favorite example. It's a metaphor. You following? Allow me to visualize with this larger ring. Yes, that is Lunacid. Oh, you like Lunacid? Hey, okay. We got interest? Would there be interested in a Lunacid stream? Because I would do that. I would stream Lunacid. It's a good game. I wouldn't mind giving another run. It's a Kingsfield-like. You've yet to play the full release. I've beaten the full release. I have gotten all of the achievements except some of the ones for things I would rather not do in the game. If you know, you know. A description for a redundant description. A pleonasm? Is that right? Like falling down, like falling downwards. Huh. A description for a so in the same group as calling it tautology, like in that sort of thing. If you like old school, like, this is not good footage representation of what playing Lunacid is like, inherently, because I'm doing a thing you're not really supposed to do in the game. It is an old school FromSoft type game where it's a first-person RPG where you explore dungeons and you have enemies that you're supposed to unlock different weapons to fight, and some of them will give you different weapons. And then you are meant to re-explore these areas as you get new equipment, kind of Metroidvania-y, but also just as you understand what's going on more, things will start to make more sense, and you will explore areas with a different goal in mind, and as a result will find different things in the area. It is a, I would put it in a class of game like Outer Wilds, where it is better to know not a ton going in, but thankfully, because it is a very defined style of RPG, you can still explain the gameplay to people. Like, if you like first-person sword and board, or at 1 out of 100 different fucking weapons, combat that is like very slow and purposeful with a charge up of swinging swords against multiple kinds of enemies as you explore dungeons. The Dread X Collection. I have not. Buttery Butter. Aw. Yeah, it's the guy that made Spooky House of Jump Scares. That's right. Yeah, I would recommend Lunacid. I think I have 45 hours in it. It was Ace that got me into it, and yeah, it's good. In order to make games out of games, you must first literally get outside of their maps. The bulk of games don't feature movement in a way that allows for the specific kind of escape. Jay informed me after this video's release that Half-Life Alyx speedruns do this. They clip out of bounds using like repositioning. Nightmare. Holy shit. It's just my favorite exam. I want to say that name is familiar, but I might be thinking of something else. Example. It's a metaphor. You following? Allow me to visualize with this larger ring representing the true limits of what a game can theoretically allow. Here is where you can find all of the strange, chaotic behaviors that are not per se intended. Look, I could stream louder, but I'm actually thinking that my microphone is starting to get to the end of its wavelength. Like, I have to keep turning the gain up for people to hear me more and more and more and more. So I don't want to unnecessarily scream into this, especially when I need it to hold out long enough to do the payday video, in which there is a chance I will do some yelling. I'm going to try and limit it because I don't want it to come off across as an angry rant. It is an intervention. It is an intervention on this fucking studio. They run to the corner of the play space and then reset their position so they reload on level geometry seams to scamper around. That's fucking incredible. Oh, it's about the frequency. I say. The differential. Functions of games, but still very much are fabrics in their cultural anomalies, I say. Even if you're seeing it from the other side. All of this is what games are made for. All of this is what players wind up making of games for themselves given time. Speedrunners, wave dashing, bug bounties, machinima, El is real, the never and nothing games in reality defined by undefinition. Trade servers, hidden killer games. Surprisingly difficult thing to do, by the way. Okay, so let's talk about. There's a lot of jokes that go by really quick here. I'm a big fan of these snappy edits. There's a lot of jokes here. FFT. See, this is where getting to the part of audio where I only know like the practical elements of what from the hardware side, because I understood everything from the side of watching my dad do radio. I don't actually understand what's happening on the software side. I'll be perfectly honest. But a lot of jokes go by fast here. Is what players wind up making of games for themselves given time. Speedrun. So, first of all, I wanted to specifically highlight like GDQ does a lot of other like showcase runs other than just the big GDQ events. They do unapologetically Black and Fast. They do I'm pretty sure I just got the name wrong there. Hold on. Is that No, that's it. Unapologetically black and fast. Okay. I saw the context of unapologetically black and queer recently, and I wanted to be sure I wasn't, like, filling that wording in my head. Math bullshit to show which frequency show up. I need to play Signal State. I was gifted that by Ace, and that might help me understand a little more. The Signal State. Isometric 3D dungeon crawler that's heavily physics-based, even when your character is essentially physics-based ragdoll. Huh. I like fucking around with physics like that. I was just talking with someone about this the other day, about how, like, QWOP was a surprisingly interesting thought experiment of a video game of what are you actually controlling when you control your player, and how it was such a stupid shitpost of a game did actually lead to some interesting thoughts there. But, okay, so yeah.
Wave dashing.
Luigi wave dashing by, bug bounties. Okay. Bug bounties. The joke here is that this is TikTok clock in Mario. Mario has just snapped back up to the top of it. There is a famous bug that happened during a speed run of Mario. I believe it was during specifically a speedrun race of Mario 64 that two streamers were doing, where one of them does a strange wall kick off of the slope and gets teleported all the way to the top of the map. Nobody has been able to recreate this behavior in the game since. There is a bug bounty out there for over $1,000, and no one's been able to recreate it. The genuine conclusion that people have come to for what happened, you are right, Square, is what I'm showing here of a beam from the sun hit the RAM and just like percentile billionth chance like fucked with the RAM a little bit to make that happen. Yeah, like a particle of forgotten plasma discarded from the ether got lodged in the RAM for a phantasmal second. And it was enough to kick the speedrunner up all the way to the TikTok clock, which is why I'm holding my N64 up to the sun here to try and recreate muons. It's happened before. Cosmic Rays fucked with machines. This can happen. What I am saying is the chance of it happening the way it did is so infinitesimally small that to me, it is inherently funny. The fact that, like, a machine getting fucked with is one thing. A cosmic ray deciding that you needed to get a, like, 15-second boost in a speedrun races is hilarious. It is hilarious to me. Or just an aging context, something happened that caused the upwarp. It's still hilarious to discuss it like the sun blessed us. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's so fucking funny. And if it turns out it wasn't the sun, that it was some other thing, cool. That's also an interesting answer. That's what I love about shit like this, is this is a crazy thing that happened. Any explanation for it would inherently be interesting. Unless it turned out it was that he was cheating, in which case, no, I'll take it back. That would also be an interesting story of, wait, how did you do that? Like, how did no one know all this time? Which, that's not what happened. But, increased by an exact power of 2. Okay, yeah, hang on, I want to make sure I get this right. There was a case in Belgium where a cosmic ray fucked with a voting machine and gave a politician a lot more votes than were possible. I do remember hearing about that. Yeah, like, to the point where it was so ridiculous that clearly something went wrong. But that's what I'm talking about, where normally if something goes wrong with a machine like this, it happens to such a degree that it's immediately noticeable. This made me reconsider all of those times in my life that Austin tells me, like, the game is supposed to do this, but it just didn't, and I don't know why, and then tries to show me and it doesn't happen, and I'm thinking, like, sure. It makes me go, fuck, I don't know, maybe. Maybe the game really did do that. It was like 1024 out of possible. It's like 612. Yeah, like, okay, that's crazy. A guy didn't replicate the speedrun glitch by manually changing a bit. Yeah, like, that whole story is so interesting to me, but it's the exact thing I'm talking about with, that is also Mario 64. Like, we're talking about Mario 64 and Nintendo when we talk about that. Not a single person involved in the development of that game had any consideration anything like this could ever happen. And we still talk about it as being part of the game, and that's inherently cool. It's like tabletop RPGs. You are bringing something to the story that just written text could not possibly create.
Is real, the never and nothing games in reality defined by undefinition.
This was a surprisingly difficult shot to do, of like putting video footage in where there was normally a still image on this article.
Trade servers, hidden killer games.
Okay, hidden killer games. This is the Travis McElroy Among Us rant. Oh, yes, IGN's kind of insufferable a lot of the time, but I do watch their speedrunner reacts. Also, they do have some legitimately good journalism there. IGN is not a universal monolith of bad writing and bad critics. That's bullshit. No platform is. There are legitimately good journalists there. Putting on tinfoil man 64. Wave dashing back on the screen for the L is real bet. Yes, when I realized that Luigi has such a potent wave dash to the point that it's the most visually recognizable thing, and then I realized I also talk about L is real, I scoured the internet and finally mercifully found a GIF of Luigi wave dashing that someone made in a tutorial about how to wave dash. Finally fucking found it.
Spaces were breaking.
Okay, yeah, so this is the Among Us rant. Fox has a good wave dash, but Luigi's is the one that sends you the furthest. But the difference is that Luigi is a dumbass character. Like, he can still be good, but, yeah. It's just because Luigi is so slippery.
By undefinition. Trade servers, hidden
Are we aware of the Travis McElroy Among Us rant as, like, a community? Like, we all know about this, right? About this fucking dumb thing that this, like, man who gets too much shit but should get shit for this did. Okay, okay, so during a charity benefit live stream years ago, when Among Us was still, like, big culturally, like, the #1 thing, all of the other players involved in the lobby had a round, as they did a lot of rounds, where they were fucking around and not really playing the game properly. Like, they had a bit they were doing. And Travis, while trying to keep composed, went on this very confusing rant about, like, I just feel like you guys aren't taking this seriously, and we're all trying to have a good time here and play the game, but if you aren't playing by the rules, then why are we even playing the game? Nobody was on board with this. No one would, like, this is not the time or the place for this, Travis. If you are having a legitimate criticism of the way people here are behaving, there are other ways to express that than I need to grind the stream to a halt to go on a rant about what a video game is supposed to be. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna pull up the video because I don't want to screen share another thing, but I will get the audio of the Travis McElroy Among Us rant. I like how it's still in my recommendeds. Okay, here's the thing. I used to listen to Mem all the time. I don't anymore. I just got older and fell off of them, but also inherently the thing they are doing, a lot of other comedians do as well now. They've moved on to doing other stuff. Anyways, I'm gonna speed through this because I don't want to spend too long on this. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this at higher speed. So get ready for Travis McElroy Nightcore.
Happening.
Yeah, it's cheesy.
Oh my god. Trav murdered someone right in front of me, Jill.
This is really make me decide.
I don't even know how this even happened. This is insane. I didn't know that a child could do type of camp.
It's not really fun for me, if I'm being honest, this style of play, where, like, it just seems chaotic for the purpose of it. So, like, we know it's cheesy, and I have an audience who's watching because they want to see us play the game. So if we're not going to play it right, then I don't know, it's just not as fun.
No, it's, yeah, I mean, at this point, we all know. We all know what's happening.
Cheesy, you gonna vote yourself, Cheesy?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote myself. Yeah, it's a good man right there. Yeah, over there voting for yourself.
Oh my god.
I guess you can't.
So, like, it keeps going.
But, like, it's just not fun because I got an audience, you see. You say as you aren't doing the thing. Like, okay. I've talked about this in the past, and I've kind of changed my tone on it a little bit as I've changed as a person of the energy that I like to bring to streams is professional unprofessionalism. Of, we're all just here to have a good time, and if something goes wrong, that should be something that we don't ignore. Like, we can handle it. Like, okay, there's a problem. Like, everyone here knows that there could be technical issues, we'll move with it. It's another thing altogether to choose to have a moment where I'm going to bring down the energy for a second, and then we need to passively bring the energy back up. If you are going to bring down the energy for a moment to be like, hey, well, this is a serious thing we got to talk about, you got to couch it back to front. You have got to lead in with like, hey, do you think maybe we could take the game, like, this round, like, we could, like, play legit, like seriously, because I would like to kind of see how this game is, like, the game flow is supposed to be. We've just been doing bits. Real-ass criticism to have. This is the #1 complaint most people have about online games and co-op games, especially online-only, co-op-only games, of if you try to start playing the game after it's been out for a long time, you get matched in a lobby with other people who have been tryharding the game, or it's just their #1 favorite game. Even if it's a co-op game, you still have to deal with, I don't understand what is happening in this level because everyone else has done all the objectives immediately before I could get to them, so I don't have any context for what's happening here. People are doing things ahead of the voice lines being played. I'm mostly talking about Payday 3, I'm now realizing. But also, this is a problem in a lot of games of you can't experience the game flow as it's meant to be experienced because other players are trying to do the same thing that they've done a million times and are frustrated that you're taking your time. Yes, Payday 2 definitely had this as an issue. It's something that you shake off after a while because you start to get familiar with it. Sometimes you'll get a run where you are also with people who haven't played it before. But to kill the energy of a stream, to let everyone know, hey, I would rather just play the video game than do these bits where we, like, vote one person off because it's funny. And then to immediately start, like, let's get streaming. Like, eh. Elitists in games are a bit of a plague. I also think there's an amount of passive elitism that shouldn't necessarily be the fault of the players partaking in it, but if you play the same game over and over and over again and there are parts of the game that are slow and monotonous, you inherently want to blast past those to get to the stuff that you really like. There's just no system in place to make that clear that that's what's happening. Instead, the game just skips steps of explaining to you what's going on. You could always just play Payday 3. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Payday 3 is getting a single-player mode, so we'll see how it goes. If the single-player mode allows for people to have a more focused experience so they can actually understand that, then fuck yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's not fair to say this is a behavior that needs to change among players because it's just natural. You will just eventually stop standing around waiting for the character explaining what's supposed to be happening to do what to do, and you will run to the door or to the objective that you'll need to pick up that you just can't yet, and you'll stand there and you'll wait and you'll interact with it the first frame that it lets you interact with it. Like, you are learning the map. That's normal behavior. Take care, Jay. Is the single player offline? Because that's a big deal for people, but I guess we'll have to see. Because it does work. What we're talking about, sure. What the update that I think that was actually really good for Payday 2
like, of the ones I remember, the thing that I was like, oh, no, this is it. Oh, this is it. Gotta be real, I think maybe the one that got me the most excited and I was willing to put up with the most bullshit to enjoy was probably either Big Bank or Golden Grin Casino. Because those maps were just ridiculously big, and being able to stealth them with like the pre-planning, all of that became its own interesting form of game that Payday 3 just doesn't have any of that. The fucking pre-planning. The skills update. The desync fix update I remember being a huge deal too. Like, that really made the game feel like it was supposed to, when for a long time it felt like everything I was seeing was kind of a cheap slideshow version of it. Oh, don't worry, there will be a joke.
Killer games. Spaces where breaking players' own imposed social rules ends in social punishment. Role-playing servers and non-role-playing games. Shit, I got more hours out of Valve products playing socially enforced game modes than intended ones.
The original joke there was not a joke. I was just actually going to have footage of Dark RP. I was just going to go into a server for a few minutes and fuck around. But it took so long to start downloading all those files that I realized that was the funnier thing, was to just show that. The ultimate Dark RP experience of sitting and waiting for 30 minutes for one file to download to connect to a server that immediately kicks you.
Games have limits to have challenge to have meaning. But by breaking those limits, we, the audience, introduce our own meaning. To wit, studios respond to this behavior by adopting, adapting, or attacking. Legal action
It
is
was very funny that Nintendo started the lawsuit as I was producing this video, but then the lawsuit was settled and Yuzu went down by the time I was getting to the end of the video, so I actually have the follow-up to this story later in the video, just linearly in time. That's how long this took.
It's unpopular, but embracing the creative and chaotic side of gaming is a technical balancing act. Level editors and mod tools aren't enough without players wanting something made that you can't provide. The players must discover it all for themselves. Maybe they just need a little nudge.
Dead language of virtual fault and the lost language of virtual
As kids, my friend Xander and I challenged each other to a race in a game called I Wanna Be the Guy. It started as who could beat the game faster, and very quickly became who could beat Mike Tyson faster. The first boss. For those not in the know, this was an absurdist, tough-as-nails media mishmash platformer in the late thousands from a solo dev. A game that's actively trying to kill the player. And for those of you who remember I Wanna Be the Guy, hearing we played it as kids may have game overed you instantly. Call me crazy, but I'm a big fan of intentionally hostile game design, of a developer anticipating.
Cat Mario feels familiar. I Wanna Be the Guy. Classic. These are classics. I miss the old games. Aha. Well, you know what? Do you want to know what awaits? Do you want to know what awaits? I got some news for you, buddy.
Player behavior and countering
new
it,
adventures.
either to direct them to another solution or, honestly, just for a laugh. Kaizo Mario comes to mind, or maybe even Dark Souls. At least a video game that wants you to suffer, wants you to feel an emotion at all. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Point being, games can have irritating and or immersion-breaking moments designed to
Fancy Pants Adventure. There was an Escape the Phone Booth game I remember playing. There was a lot of escape room games I played, I remember. Stick Arena, X-Gen Studios. A lot of them probably suck, I'm now realizing, considering the vibe that game had, but...
Whew. To suggest something to the player. Point them to a different action. A guiding hand or a closed fist. Glaringly obnoxious incidents in games blind out duller, more mundane ones. In time enough, imperfect memories blot out anything but those glints. Ocarina of Time is a great game, except for the Water Temple. I love Dragon Age Origins, except for the Fade. Halo holds up, except for the library. Fable 3 was great, but grinding the gold for the good ending, Peter Molyneux owes all of us financial compensation. Some of us literally.
Did you know Peter Molyneux once apothecized a teenager? and owes him at least a couple tens of thousands of quid. You know, Peter Molyneux promised revenue sharing to a teenager for Goddess, and then Goddess was removed from sale, and he never got a dime of it. Yeah, that all happened. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, the Cube game. Remember what's inside the Cube? I wrote a whole blog post about this, a whole thing. Peter Molyneux, that time Peter Molyneux hypothesized a Scottish teenager. Project Flashpoint. That sounds vaguely familiar. Is that to like recreate old Flash games now that Flash is dead? Ah, yes it is. Missed your chance to be a rich kid now. No, you didn't, is the thing. Is the thing, because he didn't get paid a dime. I would talk more about it or bring up articles about it, but the kid involved, who is no longer a kid, said that he kind of just wants to be done and over it, so I don't want to make a whole thing about it, but yeah, that happened.
Yet, were you to play those games again, an old crop of issues would bountifully remind itself at you. Games don't have to be perfect to be amazing, but gamers tend to remember old titles as classics, trash, or not remember them at all.
Do you all get what I'm talking about here, by the way? This was a point I was worried about. When I'm saying that people tend to remember bad things in games they liked as being there was a thing in the game that sucked, and if it weren't for that thing, that game would have been perfect. And really, a lot of the time, it was that the game was already imperfect, but you, as a kid, weren't annoyed enough with those problems until they all came to a head in one segment where you were otherwise frustrated. So you started to notice these things because you were in a state of doing the same thing over and over again and trying to critically understand what isn't working about the thing that you're doing. Yeah, okay, I'm glad people have caught on to this. It is, you're right, it is true of everything. If people will boil it down to like an individual bad thing happened. If it weren't for that, it would have all been good. As if P. Diddy wasn't always like this. But, sorry. Just watching. If you're looking for some good stand-up, Josh Johnston. Is it Son? Or, no, I think it's Johnston. He's a correspondent on The Daily Show. They both stand up to YouTube. He's fucking funny. Fucking funny. Highly recommend. As like an East Coaster, his visions of New York are so fucking fun. He's so good. Anyways,
but these flashpoints of dissatisfaction can later become focal points of critique. In a way, that can be useful to a developer. People will remember their irritation with an isolated specific part of the game and subconsciously associate all their grievances with the part that they hate, even if those problems have nothing to do with each other. That game was a great...
Yeah, I've got friends who talk about games like this. I've got friends who will say with a straight face that, like, yeah, the Water Temple was the only bad thing in Ocarina of Time. That game was perfect. And like, the fuck are you talking about? That game is in so many ways so strange, but it came to be understandable and acceptable as other games did the same concepts but better. And then in retrospect, people went and kind of understood more what was happening there. But there's a lot of confusion people have with new games introducing new mechanics if they aren't visually explained well, that people will just forget about in the future once general audiences start to understand those mechanics. Nostalgia's a hell of a drug, you're right. Old Mercedes is all immortal except the ones that wrested away from being... Yeah, oh man, I don't know a ton about cars, but I've definitely heard people make the joke about, like, the only reason you think these old cars are universally so hardy is because you still have them. You don't have the ones that broke and rusted and fell apart because they don't exist anymore.
Platformer except for the ice level, or maybe it was a sloppy platformer by today's standards,
Absolutely.
and that problem was exacerbated in certain segments. But it's not like games are trying to make bad levels on purpose. At least not without a good reason. These things—
Shoutouts to all my games out there that make levels that the level designer is thinking, oh, this is gonna really fucking make people mad. People are gonna be so angry about this. Because that too is a form of development. That is, I can't pretend that's not funny. I made Kaizo Mario hacks when I was a kid. I can't pretend that shit isn't funny.
things are just tidbits of knowledge. Players and developers alike—
Oh, Sophia, you're so right about the Switch Pokemon games. You're so fucking right.
pick up over the years. Into it with enough time with similar hardware, similar games. Intuition, however—
This is the way I fucking felt about Back 4 Blood, and it's also the way I ultimately feel about both Payday 3 and Rockay City. Of, there is legitimate criticism to be had at these people and these developers and this whole thing that a lot of people are only choosing to bring up because it's a chance to dunk on something that isn't perfect. That criticism wouldn't be brought up if they liked it enough. And the source on that is people who do like these games I can still be aware of that criticism and acknowledge it and ultimately still go, yeah, but I do like the game. I think people came around on the modern Lego games more and more as time went on. Yeah, like I think people are starting to soften it. I think people are just being mean, and the Sweet Baby Inc. of it all, the fucking like people who think is it Happy Baby or Sweet Baby, the company that people think is responsible for woke, like. Breaking news, you've discovered that people use consultancy firms and that this industry is a bit niche and also monopolized. And you are identifying as, for some reason, a problem with these individual games. So fucking funny. It's so fucking funny. It really feels like if people all at once were like, hold on a fucking second. Starting to notice that every single one of these game controllers has a D-pad on it. What's that all about? Do you know Nintendo holds the patent on D-pads? I think Nintendo's fucking up all those consoles too, sabotaging them so they can't have as good of games as we do. Because they can't use D-pad right. It's the same bullshit there. If you've identified a real thing, but not a problem, just a thing that exists. For the record, the Nintendo patented the D-pad is stupid. That was an annoying thing that exists. But also, like, coming to the conclusion of this thing I don't like is bad because of this thing that's kind of skizzy is such a gamer response. Fucking hell. Yeah, like, I'm sitting here from the perspective of, in my opinion, 90% of DEI is bullshit. 90% of, like, diversity, equity, and inclusion training is telling white people that they should consider that there are not only other white people out there, and then not asking them for a response. It is the equivalent of, like, a company saying that, like, oh, we're pro-union because we brought in union information people, who are people who come in and, like, read you the Wikipedia definition for what a union is and then leave. Like, you've not done anything. This hasn't done anything, and it's actually kind of a problem because you're distracting from the real issues of actual racism, actual genuine misogyny within the games industry, stopping people from getting into positions where they would be able to make that change for themselves. So there does need to be equity to get people further into the industry who have been pushed out for so long. It doesn't fucking help to have someone come in and give a PowerPoint presentation to your group about how these individuals need to be less racist. It is if your group is being racist, I suppose, but then maybe I don't think these companies would be quite as excited to put out press releases of, good news, everyone, our racist pieces of shit are getting taught now. We got it solved. They're putting it out there as though this isn't a problem, but we're solving towards a solution of a future problem by continuing to pour money into the non-profit industrial complex. Good fuck. LaCroix definition of anti-discrimination. Oh, Christ the Tabernacle. That's funny. Yeah, CRT is another conservative bogeyman when, like, the actual thing that is CRT is a totally legitimate field to study, and then a lot of other things exist around it that use the verbiage of it because it makes them seem like they're involved in it, and then these grifters come in and think all of that is the same. And go and label all of this to their horrible right-winger audience as being woke. It's all CRT. It's all DEI. It's all Sweet Baby Inc. Can be learned and unlearned. For example, the visual language of video games has shifted over the years. Oh, you want to know why Kill the Justice League failed? Because, yes, definitely, you're completely right. That is part of it, that people are just sick and tired of live service games. It also failed because they changed the developmental direction twice during development. They just, like, crunched these people and then delayed while crunching them too to make a different thing that was fleetingly in the moment what people seemed to want, and they were dead wrong because it was a fleeting moment. Is there a bad noise? Something happening? When playing a game, we're agreeing to certain basic mechanics. How to participate in the world the software creates, and what counts as participation. Some of these are fairly intuitive. Joystick moves you around. You can figure that out just tilting it. A is an action button. You can figure that out by pressing it. But how do you teach a player to look up when so much of the real world visual focus is defined by horizon? How best to tell? It was continually whatever the thing at the moment that seemed like it would be popular was. They kept changing development direction over the course of the game over and over again. Your company has a page to celebrate how progressive it is when I ask about it. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking about in Trevor Part 2, one of the DEI people that they have on the board of directors at Trevor Project was from Johnson & Johnson. And I went to check the Johnson & Johnson DEI program, and they did have a webpage about it, and they had a list up of their goals and priorities for 2023 DEI regarding specifically Black, African American, I think they specifically listed as African American employees. And there were 4 big bubble windows, and all of them said, add goals here. And they published this to their public website on johnsonandjohnson.com. It is now 20... Y'all, we have got to read the Trevor Project articles. They're bonkers. That was one of the tamest things I could have possibly revealed from that insane story. Then which plants are placed? Maybe we'll read Trevor Part 1 after this, and then I'll leave Part 2 and 3 for y'all to read. Hang on, I'm gonna get the picture real quick. Give me. I really need y'all to see this. It's so fucking bad. This drive, projects, Trevor, that would be Part 2. There it is. African, okay, it was African ancestry. I was remembering AA. African ancestry. Capture priorities here. This is fake DEI. This is the shit I'm talking about. This isn't what the concept of DEI is supposed to be. The concept of it is a legitimate thing. But here we are. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. Interesting and fucking stupid. Preach. Oh my god. Okay.
are interactable and which are purely decorative. If a player can climb walls, how best to indicate which walls can be climbed? What makes certain spikes read as lethal and others as just damage? If a car can be opened and climbed inside, how do you let...
Oh yeah, and only like recently are scientists starting to actually be open to the idea of the common story of the peopling of the Americas was wrong. Yeah, like it's interesting. It's interesting, like, what it takes for these people to suddenly... To suddenly... Yeah, right? Like, it's finding out that it might have affected you. Like, wait, I don't want to say that I'm an idiot. So, it turns out it might have been more complicated than we thought. Fucking God.
The player know that when so many other vehicles are simple props. This dichotomy of static versus dynamic elements is important to video game design, but it didn't necessarily start there. Logistics came first. On older hardware...
This whole static versus dynamic thing was going to be a video on its own originally, but I realized it would have been like 5 minutes long.
Sprites that move independently of a screen scrolling kept precious memory occupied, regardless of player input. Computers need time to process the visual output, so if it takes the hardware longer to render frames than the game's frame rate itself, the game has to hold on previous frames to finish processing. Sprites aren't required for this behavior, mind you, they were just the typical culprit. That's why Mega Man 3 runs like trash. This slowdown of processing speed must either be limited or accounted for. Sprites get used sparingly and specifically. The behavior of sprites in something such as a platformer is uniquely recognizable, especially to older gamers. Mobile objects are rogue factors. They're the only things moving in the world without the player moving first. Static but interactable objects...
It was surprisingly difficult because I realized this video was going to need to be in 30 FPS. Since so much of it was my IRL footage, it wouldn't make sense to do the video at 60 FPS and to interpolate all of that footage for the game footage, which isn't the bulk of it. And some of the game footage wouldn't even be at 60 FPS anyways, because a lot of it's trailer footage, and a lot of those are at 30. As a result, I actually kind of couldn't show off the sprite flicker that I really wanted to show off, because that goes at a higher hertz that 30 FPS couldn't show. So I had to find examples where it's really obvious or there's something else simulacrous happening, like the little bars being cut into sprites of rendering.
Share the quirks of their hardware rendering. There's a certain flicker,
like that.
Desynced motion, delayed rendering, telltale of a sprite masquerading as backdrop. As video games turned 3D, dynamic models adopted some of this technical fault. If an object seems particularly high definition, or lit unlike anything else in the room, you can probably interact with it. You know in old cartoons and anime when there's a piece of the background that isn't painted like everything else, but instead drawn at a different level of detail, and thus clues you in that the solid ground the protagonist is standing on is gonna stop being solid real quick?
I've been told since that people refer to this as the Hanna-Barbera effect. I probably would have mentioned that if I had known, but I don't think I'm going to call it that, because a lot more things did that before Hanna-Barbera, at least as far as I know. I might be wrong about that, but yeah.
In a very literal way, this is a fault of the animation process, but an aesthetically accepted one, and in a video game, a visual element which cries out for mechanic. With senses constrained to sight, sound, and very limited feel, secondary indicators like these will have to do. Not to mention noise added by old television, blurring lines in anime and games alike, accounting for these seams. CRTs were the ubiquitous final output of the era, and media was created with that in mind. But as we get better displays and more complex images to render, this dividing line between static and dynamic elements becomes more and more distracting until it eventually vanishes, and everything looks real. Trees react to wind but are no less backdrop. Waterfalls may roar to no one but themselves. What is one crate to another if the whole world is themed to being convincingly real?
Honestly, that sentence could be the tweet. If you ever fucking, not that you should be on Twitter, but if you ever need someone to understand why yellow paint exists in games, especially if someone posts a fucking picture of like a barrel or a box covered in yellow paint, and like Snidely is like, you didn't have to tell me I could break that game. It's a video game, I know. You can say, what's one crate to another in a world themed to be realistic? There's a million other fucking crates in these games. How are you supposed to know which one of them is the special one you're supposed to interact with unless they make it visually distinct?
Being convincingly real. How am I to know which details are useful in a sea of details for detail's sake? The difference between props and environments has become so indistinct that games must inform the user of their playable pieces more directly. A glow, UI prompt, or outline. This isn't a bad thing, it's basic game design, but depending on its frequency can still break immersion. A shiny object or waypoint popping up to railroad the player back to intended play. So how do we indicate to the player what's worth paying attention to in the world? Make that interruption of import more immersive? Well, for being direct, we could just paint a sign.
You don't get the hate for waypoints. I do want to talk about that. I also want to say real quick, it's kind of an inherent problem of America's whole brand being we do it the loud, the biggest, and the most. That every other country in the world that wants to get involved in geopolitic and feels compelled to be involved in global capitalism also feels like they have to have a brand. Like your country needs, like, soft power as a concept has become synonymous with brand, and that's fucked. Yeah, waypoints are good. Waypoints are a good thing to exist in video games. They inform you that you aren't crazy for doing the thing that you're doing. Some games will do this with like a mini map or a waypoint. I think that's also the decision behind things like the compass that exists in some games at the top of the screen that has waypoints on it, where you can choose to ignore it if you're just looking to explore for a while. I think that's how Fallout 4 does it, if memory serves. You ain't wrong. It just kind of puts you in the vague area and you're supposed to figure it out, but the language of a waypoint means here. Every game that has like a waypoint system where it's here is the specific thing you need to grab that uses that same icon for it's somewhere around here is missing a fucking trick. It showed you the way to go so you knew which way was the explorer way. Oh, it just points to the person who told you about it. Like, this is, again, video game language problem of a waypoint on a map means a different thing in a game than it does in the language of a real map.
I've got another story. It's shorter this time. There's this brilliant game that released a little while back, Teardown. Destruction simulator, heisting game, has some really satisfying voxel-based physics.
We should add
often the
disability
object of the
options.
game is to secure several pieces of loot from across the map with the most efficient route you can find, as once you grab that first item, an alarm tolls and a countdown starts. So while pre-planning, deciding what path to follow to hit every spot and grab up as much loot as I can, I'd used a can of spray paint to plot my route. Literally draw yellow arrows to keep me on track to my objective, something that stands out even when blurred from motion against the bulk of the game's color palette. This shade of yellow, like the kind used for road paint, is good at catching one's eye when everything else looks more or less plain.
I didn't realize there was like such opinions on waypoints. I am of the opinion that they are something of an accessibility feature for if motion doesn't capture your eye the same way as it does. I am a fan of the way some games do it, of a waypoint doesn't show up until you've taken a little bit to figure out what to do. But also, if you're using waypoints for things like map objectives, then that complicates issues. The spray can's a lot of fun, yeah.
Gray and blue and deep black. A key to visual game design is teaching the player to pay attention to a certain color scheme or exaggerated visual cue, and have them associate it with types of play. Left 4 Dead used pointed floodlights to shepherd players in the right direction, just as Resi 4 Remake uses yellow paint and tape. There's a trope you've heard about before, or if not, you'll cotton onto now.
Shoutouts to Jay, by the way, who I did a test showing of this video to, and mentioned that, like, did you include footage of, like, yellow paint on a barrel in Resident Evil 4 or something like that? And I thought, like, yeah, of course I did. Yeah, well, yeah, I did. And I didn't, so I added it in here. Thank you, Jay.
Yellow ledges, ladders, pipes, whatever it takes to get the player's focus. If your game's art style is defined first as looking realistic, then the absence of reality, visuals out of place, makes for great direction. Kayan, a
Shouts
game
to
developer
Kayan.
who made a title called, oh, look at that, argues in the linked article that games have always used this style of
Interesting
direction,
ass
even
writer.
down to the color.
Got a lot to
Yet
say
in
about
the
games.
current era, players have too many titles and developers too little wiggle room to risk letting players get lost enough to give up playing. And she's right.
Did you know that I Want to Be the Guy was made by not a guy, made by they, them, / she, her. It's cool.
It's not about the paint, it's about what it represents. Here's another complaint you've heard before. All AAA games look the same. Some edgy dudes on a colorful yet realistic
This is
scape glow while punching or shooting the bad.
This, I legitimately thought, was gonna be so much harder than it was. To find footage of a bunch of big game releases that look, at a glance, pretty samey. I thought I was gonna have to try so much harder than I did. But let's go
The
through in
same.
order.
Some
Let's see if I can remember. Hogwarts Legacy,
edgy dudes
Final Fantasy VII Remake, which for the record, this is not me saying all of these games are the same. I am saying that all of these games don't really have much of a visual identity.
on a colorful
The Remake 2 in particular, it kind of lost a bit of visual identity the first one had. I don't even remember what this one is.
yet
Avast. I think it begins with A. It's not Avowed, because that's in here also. Forspoken. Forspoken. You are correct. This is Forspoken. Thank you.
realistic scape.
Horizon.
Glow while
That is Avowed.
punching or shooting
That is, I almost said Ion Fury. Atomic Heart.
the bad guys.
And that's Dead Island 2. Yes, Forspoken is absolutely known for its Marvel-esque one-liners. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
a grand oversimplification of compounding issues in the games industry. There's this idea among those who finance games but don't play very many of them that
So I think I need to at some point just finish New Vegas so that I can talk more about its writing. But from everything I've played of 3-4 in New Vegas and everything I've seen, it is kind of based in a different approach to how you get the writing out there that I think is ultimately kind of the same problem that I had with Outer Worlds. Of this doesn't feel like a good medium to deliver the complicated character stories that you want to deliver, because you still have this character affection system that needs to integrate with these gameplay mechanics of what is a companion, what is not a companion, what is a friendly NPC, who is a story critical NPC. And I think Outer Worlds is a good game overall. I just don't know if that type of game was the best way to tell the story they wanted to tell. Iris, welcome aboard. Yes, no, sarcastic. Yeah, that's a fun, yeah. Basically. There's also the practical reality of the matter. It was the thing that Baldur's Gate 3 was smart enough to not do. of don't have a voiced protagonist beyond like some choice lines, like generico lines. Because if you do, then you have to have them record all those things that you select, and that inherently influences the writing of, oh, we want to have 4 options here because there's this whole tree that we can't let get too broad, and we can't have the characters say this shit out loud because then it's exponentially more expensive the more options we give the player. Not only is it more voice acting that the character has to, like, it's no longer just more voice acting that the actor that we get for this one character has. It is now the protagonist also has to have this additional voice acting. They apparently wanted to do a voice protagonist during early access for Outer Worlds. Outer Wilds and Outer Worlds. Outer Wilds talked about how it actually kind of benefited them because a lot of people thought that Outer Wilds was Outer Worlds and it made them look at the game. And then when, it's an interesting scenario of it is an immediate, oh, I had that wrong. It's called Outer Worlds. But now what you've done is, congratulations, this is a free impression where a person might go, well, hang on, I like space games. What is this? And they might be able to engage with it. Like, it's neat. Baldur's Gate 3. Ah, okay, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense that they wanted to have voice protagonists, but they would run into the same fucking problem every game does of, well, that's a lot of words, bud. That's a lot of words. Saints Row 1, where protagonists are, like, silent for 90% of the game. Drops a single line. Like fucking Ferb and Phineas and? Holy shit. I really appreciate how much they did with different approaches to the ending in Outer Worlds. I just still feel like, I almost feel like the kind of game that would have benefited from that writing more would have actually been like a CRPG, funny enough. But they wanted to do it. It's kind of like when a franchise has an entry that tries to get a little more thinky, and you can tell that the creator would really rather be doing something else right now, but they're supposed to be making a shonen. And then sometimes they just do that so hard that they create a new genre, and it's One Piece. Graphics shall keep looking more realistic as the years go by, and thus I didn't play it myself. I watched Austin play it. Without getting into too many spoilers, if memory serves, he had like a fuck all y'all, we're gonna put the resistance in charge ending, but I don't remember the specifics of it because I remember he had issue with one particular leader figure in the faction he was working with, and there was a story to get rid of them, but I don't remember what happened there. A shadow government. Oh, baby, we're going to Egypt. Apparently grow more immersive, or somehow be improved. It's their own Moore's Law, and just as doomed. Because as it turns out, reality looks a way. One with working eyes can look to see the detail of life, the fidelity of texture. Nothing is required. This actually kind of reminds me of the thing of onomatopoeia, where you need a word to say that I mean very literally what I am saying, and the thing you're auto-filling in your head is incorrect. Reality looks away. It does. The conceptual graphics of what a video game could be do not, by any metric, need to conform to what reality looks like. And often they don't, and we invent a new thing that is a projected medium of reality. And we invent text-based adventure games because we project text onto a screen. We invent first-person exploration games because that's the perspective that made sense for developing that game. And I don't really know how I can explain to an executive and to gamers who have this fallacy that realism is not the same thing as better. Often the things that you associate with being realistic are super real. They are projected versions of something that isn't actually the case, but it feels more like the case. I had a whole other chapter of this video that I cut because it kind of got away from the point, and also the whole chapter was based off of a wrestling metaphor, and right at the time that I was like in production of the video and was like getting ready to record, all of the new shit about Vince McMahon started coming out, which we already knew he was a monster, but we had actual proof that, oh, you were raping people. Okay. And I was like, this is just a fucking bummer. Do I really want to talk about wrestlers dying in the ring here? Maybe not. And so I cut it. But in that metaphor, I also talked about Foley art, of often what the sound of something that you see on TV or in a movie is, that's not actually the sound that thing makes. It is the idealized version of the sound that you associate with that thing making, either because of other media you've seen or because under certain rare circumstances, it's the sound that thing makes, and you associate it more with being a very identifiable, that is the only thing I know what that sound is. Best example of this, and people complain about this all the time, when in a show or a movie someone drinks from like a diner cup, like a plastic or a styrofoam cup of soda or whatever, and you hear the sound of sucking air through ice, even if the drink is supposed to be full. Because that like ice moving sound, that like air sucking sound, is associated with that type of like ice in a cup, styrofoam cup. But the thing that the actor has on set is a prop cup, is an empty cup. So to make it feel like the thing it's supposed to be, and to remove the idea from the viewer's head of you're just holding a styrofoam cup and pretending to drink from it, they make it feel even more like the thing, and then also as a result remove realism from it. Hyper reality from simulation and simulacra. That's what all this video is about, baby. Exactly, Iris. You're on board. I got excited for a realistic sleep cycle and nourishment system in a shooter. When I spoke with my friend, he said, why would I want that? Hey, people want different things, and it comes down to what is a video game deciding is worth simulating in these settings. The more real you make your game, the smaller the audience. It depends on the thing. If it is a medium which has often been defined by its lack of reality, then you might be able to get an audience of people who are interested in it for its reality. Usually that comes as a result of people losing interest because they think the thing feels fake or invented or engineered. So this happens in music all the time. All the fucking time. People think that this sounds over-engineered, where you're going to engineer a new version of a song that sounds more authentic, and people will come back to it for it being real. Yeah, but if you have to do 12 takes, and you're making an actor drink water for 12 takes, and, like, they're gaining water rate and weight, and they can't drink, and they have to keep going to the bathroom, that's a problem. Like, the only reason I have ever thought about this is because they talked about in the It's Always Sunny podcast of in early seasons when they had beers, those were beers. They were just drinking beers. Like season 1, maybe some of season 2, they were just drinking beers on set. They very quickly realized this is a terrible idea because a day would run long and they'd get hammered. So they switched to, we're just going to have beer bottles with water in them. And then they realized eventually, like, why are we drinking anything at all from this bottle when eventually on the take that we actually like, we are clearly just like half drinking and then spitting it out because we're so fucking full and we don't want to keep drinking more. So they just, there's just no liquid in there. It's just a dark bottle. Or it's like a purposefully made like prop bottle. Those are things that exist where it looks like it has a liquid inside of it, but it's just at the outer layer. It's the same effect like Half-Life Alyx does to have that liquid shader. It's neat. Movie production and video game production have a lot of the same problems, but because of the medium have to come to different solutions, and it's very interesting. Wiring reality render itself this way, save for the limitations of light, it simply is. Computers, though, default to rendering pixels arranged in common ways. The less common, the more complex. Text is an easy one, graphics are harder. Realistic graphics, well, hardware is pretty powerful these days, but that will require some software trickery to render without deep performance hits.
Games don't all look the same. The AAA market is simply limiting itself to what are considered profitable and safe visual mediums.
You're obsessed with realistic space-time scale and stakes more than simply graphics. It bothers me so much that games have this truncation that means nothing since the game is poorly paced anyways. A truncation is an interesting way to put it. It is like, you know what this means often, of interacting with the bed means your character rests and then you move on to the next day, because it would be dumb to have to play out anything beyond that. But would it? Is there not a mechanism potentially hiding in there ready to be explored? Is there not something that could be told there? Infra. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Reality as an aesthetic suits a design pipeline of disparate artists without much direction beyond the specific models and textures they're tasked with. Without clear art direction, make it look real is ubiquitous. And there are finite ways to make reality from render visually compelling. We had a good 8 or so years in the thousands using grayed out dust bowls and dirty smear to be similar to reality, blurring the seams, but with modern tech, we can go further. So why not showcase the real, the super real? Reality is impressive, at least according to the data. It's the same thing people mean when they say all Marvel movies look the same. Technology has allowed for artists to mimic reality in an agreeable way, yet the aesthetics allowed for within that technology are themselves limited.
And that's the larger point I'm making in this chapter, surmised. If you want something to look real, that means you have to accept that anything that makes it look unreal will become, to the player, a mechanic. It will seem like there's a reason you're doing it, because if something looks realistic enough, player's guard gets dropped. It's just a thing they're looking at that they can engage with at the same way they engage with reality. Can imagine, like, okay, this is a field that I'm in, and it looks like a field, and I know it's a field, and I can think of it like a field, instead of this level is a field. My experience with the Stalker series, the base game has some realism, but its loose main revival, I'm assuming revival, or maybe revile, mod cranks it up. Most people like it. There's main hardcore. Yeah, Stalker is one I want to try at some point. It's got my attention. Absolutely. Fictional city of Stahlberg. Huh. Yes, Stalker is on the list. It's probably higher up on the list too. I did start playing Metro a while back, and it kept crashing, but maybe now with my new GPU it won't. Also, Dying Light I currently have installed, and I want to play that as well. I parkoured as a kid. I can't pretend the parkour zombie shooty and melee and crafting game isn't right up my alley. Call of Pripyat. Pripyat. My mother would kill me if she heard my pronunciation. An urban survival game set in the urban survival game. Like a real game show challenge game thing. Oh no, that's a game you were currently working on. I thought I read like watching. No, okay. Yeah, that's what I've heard, Kraz. That's what I've heard.
Hollywood used to fill scenes with matte paintings, now with digital graphics, and films are written accounting for this production method. They're still using real actors, for now, captured on screens green and blue, but it's all in an attempt to generate something pretty, cost-effective, yet still recognizable as real. Confining ourselves to current-day programmers' best attempts at enhanced realism means every computer game has the same telltale signs of simulation breaking through, and similar aesthetic cues trying to grab your attention. Not as mechanic, now just as noise. If you play enough realistic-looking games, you'll start to recognize the patterns, no matter how expensive your machine is. The overwhelming blur and filtering used to mimic details fading naturally in the distance, some occasional flicker or low-resolution texture pop-in, and bright, colorful glows, floating sigils, outlines, sprites, and screen space occupation. Many of these tricks are cheap in the rendering sense, saves on performance, shows the player where to go. Blend it all together to a final render, and you get a beautiful looking world with some eye-catching exceptions. Strange shadows, flickering of the void and torchlight. Was that shine I saw revealing a secret to me, or was that just some weird clipping issue? Is that texture a waypoint or just a bug? All the glitches and gamification become one and the same. Absence of reality makes itself a mechanic whether you intend it to or not. But when your goal is to look at
Absence of reality makes itself a mechanic is the whole conceit here of if something looks strange, players are going to take notice of it. And if the reason they think it looks strange is because the game is trying to hold their hand, they'll get upsetty about it. And that's a stupid reaction, but also they're primed for it because of these games.
as close to real as possible with the same rendering solutions, over time every studio is competing to be as efficiently safe as possible. Our UI can be fun, our character designs market researched, but looking unrealistic is saved for the most successful brand synergetic multiverses. From your friendliest shade of paint to your quirky style of directory. This is what happens when you want to make a space in pursuit of profit that appeals to everyone. You're alienating anyone without cash, especially the people who would have been there anyways. It's the same way every city claims to be unique. Cities being run for profit, not unlike games, want you to feel at home at cost. The comfort of ownership with a perpetual price tag of rent and commerce. Tourists with capital are seen as more important than those who wish to stay at minimum pay. Cutting every cost behind the scenes to present the most streamlined version of a shared experience. Consistently unique, identically individual. Casting barriers to cordon derailment from A/B tested vistas, punishing those who dare try with banishment. Entertainment and culture walled off, populace presupposed, directed by little else than algorithm and yellow signage. But the yellow paint isn't the fucking problem, it's a solution to an imposed one. Video games are being gentrified, man. From a publisher's point of
How we all feel about the term gentrification, because it's kind of had a cultural shifting of it was sort of used as a boogeyman term to describe, like, I feel like some people used it in a way of how a lot of chuds use woke now, of, like, it just means things improving in a way that doesn't directly benefit me or takes away something that I have been wrongfully given too much access to as opposed to everyone else who needs it all of this time. And I think over time, the word has shifted back to mean the thing that I think it should mean. Even though there's not an agreed upon definition of gentrification, I do believe most people generally agree the contours of it is a space being, specifically usually a city or a town space, being improved by outside companies, renovated, and then the price of living in that area as a result increases and prices out the people who were already there. It is the act of a place that was mainly operating to serve its local community and maybe tourists, maybe some other people, maybe. But it was operating with the perspective of the people who live here, who are a part of this community, should be able to live here and have access to amenities from here at a price that is reasonable for the area. It should not be standardized and put to how much are tourists willing to pay. Because when you do that, property value goes up and the cost of living goes up in the area, and then all of the people who were just living their lives normally are forced to participate in this bullshit if they want to live at the new spec of speed of life. Yeah, South Park likes to use a lot of words they don't know how they mean. I say this as someone who's watched a lot of South Park. I don't anymore. But yeah, it can be used to basically just mean this place has pride flags and I don't like it. But I do at least think that's good. That's refreshing to hear. I think most people agree it means, I am now remembering that South Park had the whole Whole Foods arc of like that happening. And again, they oversimplified the mechanism so that they could crack jokes in a way that made sense in the world, but they were pointing to a real issue. Yeah, the Whole Foods that was being like the downtown like nightlife district area being built around Kenny's trailer. I remember that. All right.
View, the ideal game is a consistent yet repeatable experience, papering over anything deemed broken with
I noticed this at the time too. I gotta point out something. Is it just me, or is stretching Lego strange and baffling and worrisome? Like, it looks incorrect. Yeah? It really, it feels wrong. Aww. Your last $4.99 sub. It's perfectly okay, Pine. Thank you so much. I really, oh, that's right, the price is going up now, innit? Crease the Tavern. I'm more and more thinking about going to YouTube. But it's not like YouTube is itself doing a lot of favors right now, especially with the fucking you need to log in thing that they're testing. Don't like that. Don't like that.
Experience, papering over anything deemed broken with barricades or just deleting them.
In your country, you call it betonoza, which means plague of concrete. As a lot of cities are replacing squares of trees and greener with concrete. This is coming from someone who likes the aesthetic of concrete wastelands, which I know is bonkers. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. We are not just killing the planet. We are casting all of our replenishable resource in a thing that will need to go somewhere. Eventually, it can be broken up and broken down into its base components and then used for another concrete project somewhere else. Like, I love trash cities. They need to be stopped. This cannot continue. And also, I love just like natural scapes more, I would argue. But also, I acknowledge that I do like being able to just walk down a paved road and go buy a bacon, egg, and cheese while I still look at the trees around me. They're just in their little spots. I do also enjoy being able to go to an area in the forest that feels like people haven't touched, and also continue to not touch it, to just like breathe in some air and remember that life isn't just concrete and plastic.
Material altogether. Each loop on that closed contained circuit is another pass by the gift shop, tailoring your play to be conducive to sale. The phrase pay to win might have just entered your head, but first thought's not always best thought, yeah? Pay to save time. Pay to circumnavigate inconvenience. Pay before the game is delisted forever. Pay to have fun. Your upfront cost just gets you.
That was me as a kid, absolutely, Sophia. It was the same thing. That's why I have this love for both things. I did just as much city parkour as I did, like, walking through the woods.
Into the theme park, but you have to pay for the rides whose operators have long since left. A publisher seeking to optimize their product production pipeline will happily shed those pesky game developers once a satisfactory model, a repeatable mold, is constructed. Every developer responsible for the mechanisms seen as most useful to gamify is let go by their profit-seeking publisher once the essence of their work is extrapolated. Can you look at the consistent layoffs in the games industry this past year and on especially and see not the death of creativity? If you
Talking about my newest video, this came out a couple months ago, and I'm doing some behind the scenes talking about the production of it. Hanging out on the roofs of abandoned buildings after school, hell yeah, that was my thing. Go up there, have a bag of gummy worms, cigarettes, 12-pack or usually a 6-pack of bottles of soda, and it would get warm so fast. It was good.
you rip any new developer intent out of development, then there's nothing left but mimicry, noise on noise. At least a space designed poorly is a space designed at all. I'd rather a bad game from humans trying their best than a streamlined, gentrified, realistic, AI-based husk of a project. An apparition of archaic value. Quarters turned dollars turned revenue streams. Make the consumer purchase the hardware.
Dev, you'll never work with Embracer. Good. Yeah. You won't have to worry about Embracer anymore once they split into 3 fucking companies. But you'll have to worry about them on a new exponential level, as more of them, Asmodea Group and whatever Deep Silver and pals and Lord of the Rings and pals are. But yeah, this video, if you're an indie dev, we are about to get to the part. They are avoiding responsibility for the deep amount of debt they are in by splitting into 3 groups and saddling all of the debt to their tabletop group. At least I think it's the tabletop group and not the game development group. I might be wrong about that. But yeah, they're splitting into 3 legal entities next year.
Rent the software and flit impulse buys all along. Shut down the servers as soon as maintenance fees risk cutting into record profits. Moments gone and forgotten. Save for players remembering, as they will, the worst of a game. They'll remember unmoddable games as having developers who didn't care about the community. Online-only games for their downtimes. Yeah, I love that game, except for how annoying it was to play. Hey, are the servers working now? Oh, they're shut down. They'll think of the AAA grind and in time associate the game's fiction and play with it. And who can blame them? Me! I can! But I blame the executives far more. Instead of making games for pay which allow for experiences, these are experiences for pay which allow, fleetingly, for games. As I'm saying all of this, a couple of titles might be coming to mind. The recent Suicide Squad, or Starfield, The Day Before, or Pal World. Soulless is a word I've heard used to describe all of these. Titles that try and hit all the notes of what a game is supposed to be, supposed to play like, and then do every single one of those just barely. You've got your bad guys, crafting, surviving, looting, shooting. You get funny video game bugs, streamlined imperfection. Your absurdist humor, your meta commentaries, your dancing around if not outright ignorance of the real societal issues these titles aestheticize themselves to. Good games have dogs you can pet. Good games have fishing mechanics. Good games have numbers to increase by fractions of percent. Good games wink at the fourth wall. Good games have worlds open in name alone. Good games have voice acting, player customization, and factions to choose from. Good games have different endings and characters attractive to mainstream and celebrities you've heard of. Good games harken back to imperfect memories of games you've loved before. And once you start playing, you'll want desperately to find that fun again. But so much of it is behind a price tag or an artificial time limit. Maybe you'll pay more to satiate your faculty's sunk cost fallacies before time runs out.
You're gonna like this final chapter of the video,
Good ideas in these AAA nightmare games, folded somewhere in the sea of monetizable mechanics.
It's the funny
Asking
one.
what makes a video game successful is a question that's hard to answer with formula. But investors want a formula. If your game isn't pre-guaranteed to be the next big thing, then you have to play it safe.
I'll admit, I kind of agree with you, Sophia. Keanu Reeves as an actor is someone I think is much better the less he talks. But it kind of feels like over the course of the game, Keanu started to get more into the role, and it was interesting watching Austin play, and there would be like generic quip lines that he would make that were just the worst things I've ever heard in my life, and then he'd get to a story beat thing where you have to make decisions when you're talking to him, and he would like bring out this like really somber, quiet performance that was out of fucking nowhere. I've never seen Keanu do anything like this. Like, and it was really, it really pulled at my heartstrings. Like, it was actually really good. And Austin, resident Keanu Reeves hater, was, like, on the verge of tears. Like, don't do this to me, man. It's fucking Keanu Reeves. Yeah, you can get a bad voice actor to give a good performance with a good director, because you just don't hear all of the takes that didn't work. No, a successful game is one with some message behind it, or if it's memorable. Yeah, I got talking about that earlier, where people tend to remember games as either being amazing trash or not at all. I would recommend, if you would like to see the rest of the video before this, that you do that. But this final part is specifically this whole final chapter is a love letter to developers who are just completely and utterly overworked and abused in this industry right now. So I hope it gives you some catharsis, if nothing else.
So instead, the question becomes, what makes a successful
of that,
video game? Go and get whatever that is, put it all together, patch the gaps with AI and IP, then generate the next hit content unit to spruce up that quarterly report. Aren't you having fun yet?
Project Projector. Projection Projected. I want to talk about the screen just for a second here. Project Projector, Projection Projected. The title there being Project is the game, Projector is the medium, the video game. So the Project Projector is the video game. Projection is the quarterly report. Projected is we are throwing it out. Project Projector, Projection Projected. That's the name of it. Also, the bird flying by, that just happened. It was crazy. I saw this fucking dump truck as I was walking home, and was like, don't play in or around. That's funny, like out of bounds. Don't play here. And then as I was filming it,
Aren't you having fun yet?
As I was filming it on the right here, a bird goes fucking flying by. I still use Vegas. This was all Vegas, baby. This was Vegas 16. I now have Vegas 19.
It's not a stretch to say that many AAA games these days wind up vacuous products. But let's take care not to criticize this problem at its surface level, gamers though we might be. Let's not make synonymous an uninteresting game with an uninterested development team. Good people work very hard on terrible games, and terrible people work very hard on great games. To compare, I don't blame every individual journalist at rag publications for corporate puff pieces. They're victims too, and some of them probably suck, but that can be true separate from if their work is any good, if it's allowed to be any good, before it's all stripped away and automated, and if these people can put up with it, maybe the final output won't be as bad. Maybe their name won't be forever tied to a tainted title. If you ever find yourself upset with a game, asking what were the developers thinking, try to free yourself from that self-imposed line of questioning, because there's a broader question that's a lot more fun to answer. Are you enjoying yourself? Is the soul that's left engaging you? If not, that's okay, maybe there's little to no soul left there at all. But better to continue the search elsewhere than to keep digging, keep spending.
Hey, take care another 3. And, yeah, I do my best to avoid licensing fees for software. I will always be willing to do a one-time payment for good software. But I don't like monthly fees. I can't stand them. Can't stand the stress of it.
The shell of a video game, as a modern games industry financier would see it, does not default to a soul. I've played innovative titles trapped into the busy work of AAA mechanic, and mediocre games over-reliant on breakout aesthetic in place of actual material. Yet all of this equivocating as to what even is an indie game, what's AAA, what's quadruple A, what is a game, what even is a soul, is a dance we're told to step by these corpos, by these game studios, by these publishers, landlords of art who wouldn't know a soul if they had their own to compare. Embracers of creative's active vision, to seed a project with product until it will take to an interactive profit. Its own epic, defined by market cap, commerce itself gamified. Ubisoft not to notice developers' necks on the line, their pay best measured in the 10 cents. If you intend to stop it, unity is key. Developers coming together as brothers warning about this segmented consolidation of the electronic arts. The games industry must unionize. That
had so many rewrites. That whole segment had so many rewrites because the first version of it that I made in a high blitz, I ended up including studios that I didn't realize were actually like child companies of larger parent studios that I also included in the list. So I had to go through and find the version of that rant that only included game titles that I thought, or like game studios that I thought really were a problem that need to be addressed. So yeah, each one of these, I wanted originally for it to be all of them were union busting, or all of them were layoffs, or all of them were like usually mass firing. But it instead became all of these companies just think they can get away with the worst version of the thing they're doing in their region because of the success they've had at doing it. Which is an inverse property, in my opinion. Because more people are paying attention, we think we can get away with it more, is how you get the entirety of the EU suing you for antitrust. That's how that happens.
Their pay best measured in the 10 cents. If you intend to stop it, unity is key. Developers coming together as brothers warring about this segmented consolidation of the electronic arts. The games industry must unionize. Blaming developers for incompetence is blaming machinists for a crappy product, yet sometimes the designs they're given to work with are just flawed. Often, the conditions they're expected to work under are untenable, but when a product launch flops, someone's got to take the fall. If a game algorithmically destined to succeed does not, then to those with the money, the people who designed the game simply failed to meet expectations and are replaced, which is to say, laid off, fired. Thousands of people who worked to bring games to life lost their jobs in 2023.
To be clear, I didn't take you to be making a joke earlier. I am a socialist. I am openly a socialist. If you want to see me, if you want to hear me talk about unions some more, I have a video, Gaygal, called Hard Space Shipbreaker and How Games Discuss Capitalism, where I talk about that game's portrayal of a union. Fun fact, the studio that made that game didn't unionize until after the game launched and after I had made that video. Now, I'm not claiming I had literally anything to do with that, but they were not unionized when I was making the video. That's insane that the whole game was about forming a strong union, and they were not doing that in real life. But the reason they weren't is because they weren't running into any problems that they felt they had the need to create a union, which is an insidious little thing companies like to do of, we'll provide a version of the benefits you could be having that is good enough. Just good enough.
Brought to tens of thousands just including January of 2024. Maybe this is the...
Connor is my first name, Sheri is my middle name, and is the nickname I go by for most people. Honestly, I am fine with both names. I don't really have a preference anymore, I don't think. But a lot of people call me Sheri and a lot of people call me Connor, so I just kind of go by both.
First you're hearing of it. Games journalists have always been devalued and mocked by players and publishers alike. They're asked to prove themselves worthy via output volume, then are ultimately disregarded, then discarded as convenient when their reporting is deemed unimportant as synonym for unprofitable. Influencers are better marketing apparently, so why keep themselves accountable to the press? At time of writing, not a week goes by without another several hundred industry positions lost. Be it closure, downscaling, or automation, these are people who are working on beautiful things in a system that only understands numbers. Sacrament, does it not break your fucking heart? We could argue developers lazy or uninspired, overworked or underpaid, but they're all breathing the same poisoned air, choked by the same concentrated formula of game that sucked up every release with cash behind it and spit it all back out with further microtransaction, user data collection, forced online connectivity, live games as a service making dead games sans servers.
That was a whole chapter in this video of what are gamers even willing to engage with in the first place. That was earlier. We got talking about like what is it that people actually expect when they play a video game, and what are they going to take away from it, and will it just be the highlight parts, and then everything else that got in their way of enjoying those highlights will be seen as bad. Yeah, there is both an auteur issue of crediting sole developers to things, which there are solo developers out there who really do everything or almost everything themselves. And it's just unfortunate that those people existing, those like Toby Foxes, and even Toby also doesn't make any bones about claiming that he did everything himself. But those people who are known to be sole creatives, their existence means that other studios can get away with just getting a big name on a project and go, this is the director of the game. And then everyone else can get treated like trash. All the New Blood people. Yeah. I had a review of Wolfenstein Youngblood. Oh god, we are going to be talking about outsourcing development in the Payday 3 video. Oh god, we're gonna be talking about that. You know about the Cyberpunk credits being half an hour long. People talk about Sakurai like he's the sole developer of Smash Bros. Yeah, it wouldn't have been anything new for me to have brought all of that up, so I decided it wasn't worth talking about. Like, people have talked about this forever. H-Bomber guys talked about this. Creator of Deus Ex, that whole concept of being an individual creator. Yeah, they only see the end output, which I get to here.
Industry has consolidated.
Oh, no, I already did. Yeah, they only get to the end output of being fired. Of, the game was bad. I don't know why these abused laborers couldn't make a better game. It must be their fault. Let's kick them out the fucking door.
It's taken our games with it, but not the people who made them. Took everything beautiful and then closed it off and now charges admission. A walled garden built on the fault line of the inner circle. So, let's love what little we have left, broken as it might all be. Reject the painful and profitable death of medium while appreciating what's left of its media, of art both drawn and discovered. I'll keep having fun finding spots to clip out of every damn map I play, since, well, I love seeing the world from perspectives unaccounted for. Modders will keep adding guns into Baldur's Gate because it's funny, it makes people laugh, and maybe they learn new ways to code. Speedrunners will keep making and arguing new definitions of beating a game, as there's value in the fight, in the race, the spectacle streamed for charity. The new generation rediscovers Gmod and learns how to animate. Ambitious fans resurrect dead MMOs.
I have been told there is something called Skibbity
for love of the work lost, for their memories, however imperfect it may be. For every game suffocated by formula, there's ambition for artists to make something sincere.
Well, don't call it toilet. That's just offensive. Thank you, Sophia, for walking into my dad joke so perfectly. Thank you so much. I was really hoping someone would say skibbity toilets. I said, well, don't say that, that's rude. Thank you.
There are dances so beautiful that they surpass any wall. For the less you're free to dance, the more fun to dance at all. Thanks for dancing with me, and take it easy.
Production. The yellow arrows were fucking following me. Places I parkoured to. Hakunoda.
What?
And my soon-to-be husband. See. Oh, I can delete this now, yeah. So, all of us are inspired, right? All of us are pretty openly inspired, but we've there's a certain amount of discourse that exists around the idea of being inspired by media, or like wearing your inspirations on your sleeve, of
plagiarism, essentially. If you openly talk about the things that you're doing in the media that you're creating, then that's fine, right? If you don't talk about your inspirations and you just make something and you don't credit the inspirations, that's skizzy, but it's not like a crime, right? But there is a certain line of how much can I excuse as this was just an idea that was presented to me and I brought it to fruition, to really honestly say that I'm the solo creator on it? Or should you do the thing that every solo creator really should do and acknowledge that I am a solo creator through means of there are other people and things and stuff happening around me that I have an interesting perspective on, and either a funny perspective on, or there's a story in my mind that I want to tell that is influenced by the world that I have seen. And that's everyone. Everyone is inspired by the people around them. But if you treat all of it as your idea just because you're the one who had it, and ignore the stimulus and ignore the words said by other people, the experiences that you had that led you to be able to make that media, then you become a jackass. You become Peter Molyneux. You become someone so stuck up their own ass that they don't know where the release window is. I wouldn't call... No, Peter Molyneux is not a far righter. He is a con man. He is a con artist. He is a liar, an appropriator, and a con artist. Jan Hendrik. Jan Hendrik Show. Oh, yes, Jan Hendrik Schoen. I've seen... Peter Molyneux made Goddess, and he was the creator. Look at me saying made, like creator, but also Goddess didn't really ever exist, so that's actually kind of accurate. But he was one of the creative leads behind Fable. He did some business simulator games back in the day. And he had a... Yeah, he once apothecized a Scottish teenager. Yeah, that whole thing is so crazy. Also, yeah, Jan Hendrik Schoen. I've seen the Bobby Broccoli video. In the video we just watched, on the YouTube release of it, I have my inspirations. Oh, there's a historian, okay. But I have my... historian, far right. Inspirations, like, as cards on the video that are in the top right that you can click on. Where I linked to a Dan Olsen video and to a Jan Hendrik Schoen, or to the I think it actually was the Jan Hendrik Schoen videos, but to Bobby Broccoli, when I bring up things that the thought that I had or the visual that I wanted to do was spurred on by something that another creator did, even if I'm not doing the same thing they were doing. Like the let's draw a circle thing, I wanted to do that because I wanted an excuse to bring from reality something unreal into the video to sort of prime the viewer to understand the difference between that. And when I was watching the Defunct Land Disney Channel video, talking about the theme, he had the joke about, wow, it's surprisingly hard to draw a circle in the air. And it made me think, wouldn't it be funny if I, like, kind of just did a bunch of cuts the same way Disney Channel does to try and just make a circle? Wouldn't that be funny, instead of trying to hide the shape that you're making? There's a metagame called the Magic Circle with the main mechanic of the exploring, going out of bounds and shit. I'm surprised I didn't find that in my research. The film that legalized gay sex in the England. Rope and Victim. Film that legalized gay sex in the England in the 60s. See, I've had a lot of inspirations over the years, and I tried my best to keep track of them. Some of them turn out to be dipshits, and you gotta be willing to be okay with that too. That sometimes someone that you're inspired by, like, the person they are is imperfect, but the thing they created
you really respected, or if it really was the person, the way they behaved, it is that they had ideas that you liked, but you couldn't get behind the whole of them. By which I mean, I am very inspired comedically. Like, a lot of what I find funny about comedy delivery and presentation are from, you know, some of the best people to say are good comedians today, like John Mulaney and Dave Chappelle and Louis C.K. Is it Bill Burr that said that Louis C.K. got a bum rep and that people should have been like, nah, you fucking jerking off into a potted plant in front of a lady. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's got to be a line. Sure. But I'm also inspired by I like these are creators I don't really know what happened to because I didn't keep up with them. I don't know how War Owl is doing. I hope he didn't turn out to be like a far right weirdo. But I was definitely inspired by his video presentation style and very, very strongly inspired by 3 Clicks Philip, by the War Owl. He was a Counter-Strike YouTuber, but 3 Clicks Philip in particular was like the visual style and of like presenting information that I was trying to achieve started there. When I was thinking of how do I want to present this information on screen, what do I want to say, how do I want it to sound, what should I show on screen, 3 Clicks Philip was the specific inspiration I was using. The way he would edit Counter-Strike update videos, so like very explicitly showing on screen specific things from patch notes and saying it out loud, make a little quip, all of that super inspired by him. And then eventually you take your own place, you become your own person, because you have a million inspirations, and then between those inspirations are interactions that didn't happen before in art because you're inspired from different things conflicting, and you come up with ways to showcase that like combination of ideas, and that becomes new. Yeah, 3 Clicks was great. I think he's still around. I think he got into AI shit though, if memory serves, but maybe he's backed away from that. You know what? Let's check real quick. I don't like to talk about it like it was a kitschy thing, because I think a lot of people are very comfortable doing that, and then you say that to people who didn't have this, but there was a period of time where I was on 4chan a lot, where I was friends with some really shitty people, and we basically played GTA and Payday 2 together. This was before I was a YouTuber, and like would make bad jokes about people, and I think I was 16 years old, had an epiphany all at once because of a woman that we were playing with who told me, "You're a jackass, you know," or like something to that effect, and left the call. And I was talking to my friends like, what's with her, right? And all of them were like, "No, yeah, you're a dick, you're a jackass, but we know you're joking." And I realized in that moment, like, I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to be a jackass. You guys, is that why you guys like me? Because you think that like that part of me is funny, and that's what you like. That's not what the only thing I want to be. And I realized that the sense of humor I had developed was making me not critically engage with red flags. And I started doing that, and it took me like a good 2 or 3 years to really recalibrate myself as a person and realize the road I was going down. Going down the Alfa Romeo male route, then after you got enrolled, you realized you're trans. Yeah, a lot of people talk about that. And I don't want us to sit here and like go like flog ourselves for our past or anything, but I also don't want it to become like a thing people bring up as a joke too often. I'm not talking about my community. I mean, like, this is just general advice of, there are a lot of people out there who actually didn't have a Nazi phase, and I don't want the default expectation to be that a lot of queer people on the internet did have a Nazi phase. I wouldn't say I had a fucking Nazi phase. I would say that I was on the edge of becoming a full-time 4chaner type person, And then the first time I encountered something that really would have required me to truly be that person in order to shrug it off and move along, I realized, oh, all of you are also like this. I thought you were all joking. I thought all of us were shooting the shit. But the things that we were shooting the shit about were real people who have lives and were insulting for no good reason. And, like, I think one of the sparks that got me the whole thing was you when I came out as gay and non-binary. I'm so glad to hear that. You're 21. Oh God, the passage of time. But I'm so happy to hear that there are people like, because that would have really benefited me as a kid. I had, when I was, I think 13, one friend who was very open about being trans. And she was 15. And I was friends with her for like a year before, you know, just played different games, kind of fell off. And legit, that experience of just talking and knowing a trans woman made it so that I didn't just by default the first time I engaged with trans people as being a thing, being shitbag friends cracking jokes about it, I didn't immediately jump on that train. I didn't want to. It felt uncomfortable, so I just kept my fucking mouth shut until I realized that, oh, this is how you are about everyone who isn't you. Like, realizing that, oh, you're just people. You're just normal people. And then hearing the hyperbole that's said about them, it's rough. It's rough. Wow. See, I've honestly been thinking about closing the Discord server lately, because Discord is terrible, but I don't want to destroy legacy like that. And people still use it occasionally to, like, interact and meet up. And even if all people are doing there is occasionally bumping off of each other and going, let's go to DMs with it, sure, like, there's no harm there. Yeah, and like, I gotta talk about that. Okay, I gotta talk real fucking openly with all of you for a second about this. Right, this is fucking serious moment. My mental health lately has been probably the worst it's ever been. I was for years on a medication for trauma, and then eventually more specifically bipolar medication. I was on Lamictal most recently, and when I would have swing episodes, I could feel like the drug kicking in. I could feel myself calming down. Yeah, I just kind of want to explain what's been happening. It was you were 16, okay. I was also 16 when I realized I was gay, so, or queer at least. I'd say I'm probably pansexual. But yeah, when I turned 26 last year, I was no longer on my parents' health insurance, and I don't have health insurance. The good news is that once Austin and I are married, I am probably most likely going to be able to get on the health insurance he has from work. We're still waiting for my ID arrived. His didn't. He had to get the new real IDs. But we're still waiting for that. And No, we can't, because you might have typed that before you heard what I said. But we cannot go to a courtroom to get married. They will not accept his paper ID. He needs to get the ID that has the fucking star on it. And we're waiting for that to arrive in the mail, and it hasn't yet. We are absolutely, the thing you suggested is the plan. We are going to get married in a courtroom and then do a ceremony later where people have more money and it's not 100 degrees. It's a bullshit thing in the United States that starting next year is going to be mandatory for government buildings and for flights, called Real ID. If you don't know what this is and you live in the United States, you're gonna have to look into it. It is an ID that requires more information to get than a normal ID and is more expensive. Yeah, this is a United States thing, yeah. The old ID, which is suddenly bullshit now. Yeah, that's the problem we're running into. So fucked. But, alright. So, I had on a day where I was just kind of a little stressed out from other things happening. I was going to the store with Austin. We were going out, we were getting into the car, and we overhear an argument. You're from Germany abroad, I see. But, as we were leaving, we overheard an argument, a shouting match two of our neighbors were having. And I went straight from, don't get involved because you are not in a mentally stable state right now and you will do something stupid, to one of these neighbors is someone I personally know and consider a friend, and one of them is someone I don't know very well yet. And I don't want to just walk away when I'm watching someone I consider a friend get yelled at. So I started walking up to the conversation. Austin's looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? And I, in those steps walking up, because he's still shouting, got angrier and angrier and angrier, and I didn't have that moment where the meds kick in of going like, whoa, Jesus, everything just got like quiet and calmer. That gives me a moment to think like, oh, I was getting too intense. Clearly I was going too wrong. I walk up to this guy and I slap him in the fucking face. It was the worst decision I could have possibly made. Thankfully, his roommate also is bipolar and also has been off of their meds. And so he had very recently been dealing with these symptoms and instantly recognized, you are clearly not in your own head right now. I immediately apologized and freaked the fuck out. Like, oh my God, what have I just done? And we talked it down. We spent like 20 minutes talking and we ended up hugging it out. It was a disagreement that I'm not going to get into any more detail about, but it's all resolved now. But I slapped another person square in the fucking face because I was so angry over someone else's argument that I wasn't in the know of until I got involved. That's not okay. That's just not okay. And I am infinitely lucky that the person who I did this to was understanding and also understood even before I did what was happening. I am so lucky that everyone who saw this happen, all the people standing around watching this happen, also knew me and were aware that this is so out of character for me. It could have so easily turned out a different way, and I wouldn't be talking to you on stream right now. It could have ended so bad. I am... That moment where that happened made me realize that, like, I am not mentally well, and I might, if I get flustered enough or frustrated enough, I might say something that I honestly don't mean, but for the most briefest of a fraction of a moment, that thought of, like, this is absurd, but the fact that it's absurd is part of what's funny about it, takes over my inhibitions, and I just do the worst possible thing in the moment. I don't want to say something so out of pocket on stream because I think the person I'm saying about deserves it, only to then immediately go, oh my god, what did I just say? That's so stupid. I'm not talking like, I'm not worried I'm gonna say something offensive like racist or whatever. Like, usually people who are worried about that shit are people who are saying that shit a lot in private and they're worried it'll slip out. I'm talking about hurting someone's feelings over what I think is a little jab or like a light joke and I don't realize is like a deep wound that I'm pressing on. And that's the kind of shit I used to do as a teenager. When I was 16 and I was popping perks and like playing fucking GTA Online with friends. And someone would make a joke and their voice would crack. And the thing I do all the fucking time. And I would say the whole thing they just said back to them, but in a high-pitched voice, like sarcastically, thinking I'm just giving you an honest ribbing, but then they would stop talking. They would just stop talking. They would get like, so like, oh, if that's what I'm gonna get, then why would I talk? And no shit, that's the reaction they're gonna have. Obviously that's the reaction they're gonna have. If you're just being bullied relentlessly for something beyond your control, no shit, that's gonna be the reaction you have. Yeah, like, I was a fucking 16-year-old dumbass bully kid who was surrounded by people who were encouraging me, and I don't want that to be forgiven for what it was. I want it to be a fucking cautionary tale, because it's so easy to recreate that circumstance right now. It's so easy to get into a good lobby with a couple of people in a game like that you don't know randomly who happen to be really good at the game either because they know life or just because they are, and then you play like 3 or 4 matches with them and you're having a good time, and then one of them out of nowhere says the most racist thing you ever heard in your life, but everyone else laughs and they're like, you're crazy, man. And you think that, I guess that's okay then? It shouldn't be. It feels wrong. And there, of course, there's that fucking extra layer of deniability that you have that these chuds count on, of thinking for a moment, like, do I call you out for saying the N-word, or are you potentially a black person who is saying it? Or are you the thing that it was, which is a white person thinking it's funny to do a black voice where they say the N-word? And that line gets blurred when it's a low-quality voice chat and all you have for someone is their username to go off of. To my point, none of that is okay. None of it is okay. And games have created a scenario where it's a breeding ground for that exact scenario to play out, for that exact situation to play out over and over and over again. Like, you get a crew who you bond with because you all like the same game, and you learn to just not talk about these landmines or red flags, and the ones you do talk about openly, well, it's just jokes. You're having a good time. You don't want to be the person who's ruining the fun for everyone, right? You want to be the person who's ruining the night for everyone, and then everyone's gonna get mad at you, and then you're getting bullied, right? So instead, be a piece of shit. Treat other human beings like a piece of shit so that you don't get treated like a piece of shit. Because that's what video games are, apparently. Fuck that. It doesn't have to be. Lots of people play video games that aren't racist. Fuck. And that's why I don't want people to get too comfy talking about, like, yeah, I was almost a Nazi. Like, this needs to be a cautionary tale, because that exact scenario is playing out again. For a new generation, every fucking generation coming through, there's a person who is currently in a lobby in a video game having a good time who is about to hear a racial slur for the first time and not know what it is and repeat it in their classroom. And then get really defensive when people get offended at them and be like, oh, I guess this is what they were talking about when they said the woke. Like, they're all acting weird now. Yeah, that's also why I stopped playing multiplayer games for a long time, too. Nobody wants to be the social black sheep for a wrongdoing, especially when it's a medium where you are so instantly punished for it, right? Like, you associate saying the thing out loud, the correct thing that you should be saying, to stop people from being racist pieces of shit and to try and maybe educate them a little bit. your reward for that is getting team killed. Your reward for that is getting kicked from the lobby jokingly, and then they invite you back only to kick you again immediately. You get bullied through the mechanisms of the game to the point where you associate saying those things as being somehow you're playing the game wrong. Call of Duty was the big one for this for me. Like I when I was really young would play Call of Duty Zombies with one of my friends in real life and two of his friends that he made playing COD Zombies, and then eventually like one of them started making a bunch of gay jokes to the point that it actually got uncomfortable for my piece of shit friend who I was like with, who like he wasn't the worst human being. He probably turned out all right if I'm being honest, but he definitely wasn't a great kid. But he got uncomfortable, and he like was the person making like, we're playing Call of Duty Black Ops because you're not gonna play Halo Reach Around. Like that was the kind of person we're talking about here. And Call of Duty Black Cocks, that's what it was. Yeah, jeez, fucking ugh. CSGO, yep, absolutely. Counter-Strike, like the most racist thing you've ever heard in your life coming out of the person who's currently top scoring, and they use the fact that they're top scoring as a justification for, see, racism is actually okay in this environment because I'm not being punished for it, since I have the tools to socially punish other people for behaving this way, for behaving the correct way, for not being a jackass. Siege, yep. Same thing. Some people never grow out of that phase. Some people never have a moment where they realize it's a phase. Some people never have a moment where they can even conceptualize the idea of them being in a phase, because the movement is so defined by rejecting social criticality, by rejecting critically analyzing your social state among other people. That is an inherent factor of this like incel and like antisocial style of movement, of refusing to at all think that maybe something I'm doing is wrong without that being, that is a personal attack on my character as a human being. Like these people, their entire worldview would collapse if they were told that you're being racist, because they genuinely think since in their head I am not actually saying out loud that I think X or Y racist thing, then I am not racist, because we're just shitposting. It's just shitposting. They're conditioned to thinking that having a maxed out Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 account will make them suddenly good members of society. Yeah, and they're rewarded for that fucking mentality by the army going, we should recruit some of these COD players into their fucking midst. They're rewarded by being told there's a real life pipeline you could be going down instead, where all of that shit exists, but it is militantly beaten out of being said out loud. You still can hold all those fucking opinions, just don't say it out loud. Instead, act on the inevitable conclusion that those opinions would form in a way that Henry Kissinger would approve of in the modern era. Socially inept idiots who don't think other people are human beings outside of them is exactly what the army needs. Christ, you ain't wrong. Yeah, like, here's the thing. The thing that first-person shooters actually, on a mechanical level, make you good at playing enough of them is a thing a lot of other games can teach you, too. It's hand-eye coordination. It is your ability to identify information very quickly and act on it very quickly without having to think out loud all of the steps of that information. It allows you to infer if X, then Y. It like, video games will probably make you better at playing guitar. They're not necessarily gonna make you a better soldier. Or if a video game does make you a better soldier,
It's because the thing you were lacking in is a thing you could also be trained in through a non-video game mean or through a game that isn't a first-person shooter. If you're having hand-eye coordination trouble, that is a thing you can learn and work on and improve, and you can learn to play like Tetris or another game that like helps you develop that skill. I mean, there was a kid that drove, I think, their sister to a hospital in a car. Oh, I got talking about that for sure with someone the other day about, like, cars in games are probably the most interesting example of something that's simulacrous to reality that asks a certain amount of real-world information of you. Like, most games that have driving in them have, like, accelerator and brake, right? It's not just moving. An accelerator and brake isn't necessarily the language of video game movement by default. Usually there's like sprint and crouch, and the equivalent would be fast movement and slow movement. There isn't really movement and stop movement that isn't just the joystick. But cars do that. Lots of cars in games do that, where you have to actually use the pedals through means of pressing a button to represent the pedal. So it does teach you that, oh, the car doesn't just go when I hit the stick. I have to push on the accelerator, and if I want to slow down, I need to let go of that. And if I do it all at once, I might just skid out. So I need to slow down. Like, I don't have a driver's license. I can't drive. But I could probably figure out how to operate a motor vehicle based off of the intuition of what a controller is and what it does to a car. Because inherently, the car is the controller. There is a thing that is one-to-one related to the game controller in reality. Yeah, the brake is the slow down mechanism. And you can learn that, like, you can get in a car and be like, oh, this is like the A button and the B button, and this is like the joystick. Okay, I understand generally what those will do, so even if it behaves a little differently than I'm expecting, I acknowledge that, like, accelerator isn't the thing that I should go, oh, okay, slam, because if I do that in a game, I peel out, I spin out. The car isn't going fast enough. I'm just going to keep mashing the accelerator pedal until it does. Before GTA 5, I didn't know violence kept me in jail. Props to Dez for that. I do think this is the shit people talk about a lot when they talk about video games being able to teach you things, is like, it's supposed to teach you a cause and effect reaction that is more societal rather than something that a video game really could recreate or should recreate. It can recreate, like, what I'm saying is I don't think Spec Ops The Line was, I don't think a video game was the good medium for Spec Ops The Line. I think the story you're trying to tell and the thing you're trying to get at is compromised by the medium. I wonder how much you can learn about truck driving from America's Euro Truck Simulator. You could also learn little Intuit things that you wouldn't normally consider in a video game. And crucially, one of those things in a thing like a truck simulator that you wouldn't get from like GTA is an acknowledgement of other people's vehicles having consequences on your vehicle, and those consequences mattering. Like, do people obey traffic laws in GTA and Saints Row? Some of them do, sometimes you do. It's surprisingly difficult to make the game work while obeying traffic laws. The way you drive in those games, cars around you will kind of like skirt on you harder and harder and like put up to bumper with you because they expect you to just keep moving. Yeah, like what does this thing do? Also, seeing a car move past your truck and acknowledging like, oh, I have all of this truck that I have to make space for them with is a pretty different experience. It also comes down to third person versus first person. Of, are you getting the experience of what seeing someone drive a car is like, and you have controls for the experience of what seeing someone drive a car is like, or are you having controls for the experience of operating a vehicle?
Video games work to portray how horrible war is by illuminating how other video games trivialize it. Yeah, See, I don't know. I think anti-war stories in games are great. I think a first-person shooter is inherently a bad way to do it. But also, are you gonna get people to listen to your message if you don't do it that way? Right? Like, I'm aware this isn't the best medium to be doing this with, but it's where the people are. I might at some point try one of the truck simulator games, because I've got a foot pedal. That could be fun. And set it up like that. Get a wheel, have my foot pedal. I'm gonna go in a moment here. I didn't really think I was gonna stream this long. Hotline Miami Tribe, people go OST and arcade points are cool. Yeah, I guess that was a lot of people's disconnect with Hotline Miami, wasn't it? Like, a lot of people were just engaging with Hotline Miami for the absolute surface level thing that it was doing. But it was trying to have more of a, like, it was almost a commentary on these very video games themselves. Okay, I will take a look at your dog real quick. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna show the picture on stream. Hold on a second. Oh. Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good picture. Oh my god. Pause. Just the pause. There he be. There he be. Oh, look at him. Oh. Perfect. His name is Cookie. Ah. His name is fucking Cookie. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. 8 months old. People just care about the gameplay of Hotline Miami rather than the message, yeah. See, the way death works in Hotline Miami is it is the exact opposite of Hades. Of you have to accomplish this thing to get story. It's the Souls approach. It's many games approach of you have to succeed at the game enough for your reward to be you unlock story. But the kind of game that it is lends itself to flow. Of you get good, you get into a pattern of a flow state. Of like, I am familiar with how this game works. I know how everything is gonna react. I'm ready to go. I've done the same map like 10 times and I'm ready to do it again. And flow states are contrary to stopping for a cutscene. Because once you complete that flow state, you get your reward, but if the thing you're waiting on is the next level that you want to try and beat while you're still in the groove, then you're gonna not engage with it. You're gonna ignore it. It's kind of the inherent flaw of action segment, cutscene video games. And why I think a lot of gamers choose not to engage with stories often, because they're inherently already in a state where I want to keep playing the game. I like games where the story is given to you in ways where you are already expecting it when you get it, or you are choosing to engage with it when you do. Like, you unlock a thing that you can choose to read later or listen to later, or you can, like, incorporate it in one way or another into your flow. Metal Gear Solid 5, I've talked about this before, but having you can listen back to on the Walkman to like audio interviews, music, things like that. Great idea. Great fucking idea. Great way to do that. Progress really takes a lot of trial and error. One mistake, you get teleported back to the start of the stage. Yeah. I think it depended on the difficulty. I might be wrong about that. But, again, Hotline Miami inherently had a, like, die until you succeed energy about it. And that doesn't conform itself well to story. Meanwhile, Hades, you die once and then you kind of... You deflate for a second. You're like, oh, okay, the run is over. This has ended. I am now in the equipping, story, thoughtful stage where I am not like playing a Twitch game with controller. I am like, as in like a very snappy game. I am now ready to critically engage with something until I am all jacked up and ready to go for playing another round. That's a better way of doing it. Which is why it disappoints me so much to say Crime Boss Rocket City is kind of nailing it and Payday is kind of not. There's no planning phase in Payday 3, but Rocket City does like to give you these dumb little funny cutscenes you can see after you've already gotten out of the, after you've gotten out of the flow. And when you are preparing for the next state of flow, it is you choosing, okay, how many people am I bringing? Am I going to invest more money into this? Am I going to do these optional side objectives first? Am I going to capture the turf before I do this mission to make it easier? Yeah, it slaps. I can't pretend it doesn't. The roguelike and Crime Boss is a good game. But I hesitate to say that Crime Boss is a good game because good has a lot of definitions by which this game wouldn't hit. It is not an optimized game. It is not a well-performing game. It is not a smooth game. It is not a snappy game. It does not have satisfying game feel. It is not a kind game. It is not a friendly game. It is not a well-written game. But it's a solid game. It has a really solid identity and game loop to it. It is very aware of what it's trying to do, and it understands that it would really suck to tell these players to engage with a cutscene more critically than two guys standing around going, Banks! Man, I love Banks! Kim Basinger, let me look at your titties. Like, they won't pay attention to it, and they know they won't pay attention to it, so they don't try for it. They save the more interesting story stuff for something you choose to engage with when you want to. Yeah, oh yeah, it's because of the updates. It wasn't like this on launch. But Payday 3 is getting updates too to try and make it not suck, and you're gonna need it a little slower. A little slower is all I'm saying. A little slower on it. No, the 90s actually were a lot like the game shows, but that shouldn't be a desirable thing to want to achieve. People actually were throwing out, like, anti-Italian and anti-Asian slurs left, right, and center, it would be nice if we didn't go back to that. But also, it is a half-remembered version of the 90s. I'll close all this out with saying, I hope if this is a reveal to anyone in chat, y'all gotta go watch my buddy E3K Hatena. You gotta go watch Jay's videos. That Bo Anderson, you know, from Starbreeze, from Overkill, the guy who used to be CEO who fucked up Overkill's Walking Dead, is the financier of Crime Boss Rocket City. We all know this, right? That it was Bo Anderson's fault that this game is the particular way it is, because he put a bunch of money into this game and encouraged them to get more celebrities involved because he wanted to hang out with some celebrities that he liked and make them dance their little dance. And he posted on LinkedIn when the game launched on Steam how happy he was to see that you can relive the 90s with no politics. He specifically said, I love that we can relive the 90s with no politics. What a fucking dork. What an absolute white bread of a human being. Like, I'd call him a bimbo in the traditional sense, in the old school sense of an idiot man, and also because he is the white bread of men. But if I said bimbo to him, he would immediately think of something that would make him come in his jorts so hard he'd have to flee the country. So, Crime Boss Rockay City is a pretty good game, but not because of him. Maybe because of his money. Maybe. But all of the things that he brought to that game were bad PR. Like, they can't advertise on the Steam page that there are celebrities in the game because the one thing people remember about Crime Boss Rockay City is it had bullshit celebrity cameos. The only thing people remember about this game is that there were celebrities who did not give a shit in it. Outdated celebrities who didn't give a shit in it. We're talking about Crime Boss, and we're talking about how, if you didn't know this, Bo Anderson, the guy who used to be CEO of Overkill Starbreeze, who fucked up Overkill's The Walking Dead so hard and then got ousted from the company, is the financier that created, that allowed for Crime Boss Rockay City to exist the way it does. Yeah, Crime Boss Rockay City, he financed that. Yes, it's his, he financed it. It was him. Y'all gotta, I'm gonna link the video. This is gonna be the thing we link to as we go. If you want to know more about this, if you want to watch a Payday video and you want to know more about Crime Boss Rockay City and Bo Anderson, people slept on this video and they fucking shouldn't have. Oh yeah, he's in Madrid now. He went to Spain. He's not actively wanted by police, I don't think. But yeah, Jay did a whole video about that. I revealed this information to her. She was not aware of this. I got this information from Maria getting wind of it. I don't know how he got wind of it. It probably was something to do with Bo Anderson posting comments on his videos defending Crime Boss Rockay City, which is a thing that he does. He's such a fucking dork. He is such a dolt. He's such a dumbass. I have never in my life met more of an embarrassing man who has no reason to be this embarrassing than Elon Musk. That is the only person more self-owning and has no reason to be, because you have everything you could possibly want. And your self-owns are why your kids don't talk to you. Your self-owns are why your wife divorced you. Okay? That's why. Because you're just constantly putting so much stock into being a gross person because you think it's what people want around you. Nah. This game would have been a lot more interesting if instead of the celebrities, if they put more money into a more interesting, like, scale of voice actors, there are some interesting ass voice actors in this, but a lot of them don't have a ton of lines, and the ones they do have are very rushed and strange and stilted, because there are a lot of voice actors in this, and they didn't direct any of them. The original source of all of that, of the fact that this happened at all, Bo has since been public about the fact that he is involved in it, but originally he was kind of, hiding out. It was because of people talking about it on a Swedish economics forum of like, what the fuck is Bo doing now? Basically, it was all in Swedish. But translated, I think it was someone in a forum at Steam posted it to the forum saying, lol, this is Bo Anderson. And then, like, it got deleted, but then Starbreeze knew. I might be wrong about that detail. My wife is so strong she could beat you up. Yeah, and she could probably lift both of those kids you don't have anymore over her shoulders, couldn't she? Can he give you up? Can your wife give you uppies, Bo? Can she give you uppies? Is that what you want? Good fucking God. Why are we making Bo sound like the average boomer? It's a disrespect. He's such an interesting boomer is the thing, because he's like an American boomer, but he's not. He just likes the aesthetic of Americana in the 90s. Yeah, I got more to say about Bo Anderson, but I'm gonna save it for the Payday 3 video, because he is by no means the main character of Payday 3, but you have to acknowledge his specter being there the whole time, because it really informs the writing of Payday 3. They are so fucking spiteful in the writing of Payday 3 of people who used to work on this thing. They're so annoyed that there are other people that used to be there that have left. And the way they express this irritance is by making those characters who are no longer there retroactively be more of jackasses or dicks or dumbasses. And the ones who have replacement voice actors, they acknowledge the past of going like, what was that all about anyways? It's so weird. Yeah, I really, really recommend We Were Never Talking About Payday 2 from Jay. I'm gonna link it one more time. Yeah, that was the whole ending of the game, is that the crew dispersed. Is that they retired. But here's the video one more time. If you're looking for a good Payday video to watch talking about all this, I really, really recommend We Were Never Talking About Payday 2. I am going to... I am now only in this moment realizing I have not eaten any food today. I have just been smoking weed and drinking soda and water. I should really eat something. This was a long-ass stream. But you know what's great? We did a long-ass stream. I screen recorded stuff on it. I screen shared on it. And my fucking computer didn't crash. So it was definitely the GPU. Which means we can fucking stream shit now. Like, I don't have to worry about, like, what will I do if there's an interruption like that? Will I have a mental health episode? I didn't really actually finish that. Let me finish that thought real quick. That was the reason I brought up all the mental health stuff in the first place. Is there are times where I would like to stream, but I am on the edge of being too nervous and too in my own head from other stuff in my life going on, that I am worried I will just say something I can't take back that I really honestly don't mean. So that is why there have been fewer streams. It was the graphics card, the heat, and also my sister's health, Austin's new schedule. But all of that, we are now, like, we're now in the new groove of working around it, and my sister should be recovered enough by middle-ish of July for us to start the Ace Attorney, the next game in the Ace Attorney line. I will probably do more streams before then, though, because I would like to get back to doing just, like, fun, fuck around, let's play a game streams. I don't know if I'll stream Crime Boss or Arcade City. I might, but I don't know if I want to attract that audience, if you feel me. So I will stream games. I will play games on stream. Austin and I will play games together, and there are more games that I can stream now that I couldn't stream before, because even if I could run the game before, I couldn't run OBS in the game at the same time without it lagging. So I've got more options for what I can show y'all. You know what? Okay. I might stream Crime Boss at some point. I will, however, I'm gonna commit right now. I'm even gonna put this on my whiteboard, and this will make you happy, Sophie. I'm gonna do the Lunacid streams. I really want to show y'all Lunacid. I think that game has a lot of interesting. It does the same thing that every good puzzle game does, but it's an RPG more than a puzzle game.
of recontextualizing a room based off of new information in a way where you didn't really even realize that was something that important that you were cataloging before. Like, you'll enter a room, you'll see something and go, the fuck is that weird thing? And it's just the weird obelisk that's in this room, and you can't interact with it. It's part of the decor. There's some lore stuff around it. You don't think anything of it. And then later on, you unlock something and you go, oh, oh, and then you have that organic moment of realizing, oh, that's what I do there, and you go back. That moment, Lunacid is filled with like 60 of those. It's so good. Oh, man. Yeah, I'll stream that, but that's not going to be the only thing we're streaming or anything. It's just, if I want to dedicate to I want to take you all through a game on a stream, I'll stream Lunacid, because I've already beaten it once, so I won't be, like, totally lost. But it's been a couple of months, so I'll still be a little, like, bumbling and trying to remember how to do it. Right. I think that's all she wrote. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for sticking with me all of these years and all of these months of hiatuses. I will link one last thing. If you would like more words from me, and if you thought that little detail of the diversity goals of Johnson & Johnson literally have capture priorities here in the default box in every spot, if you thought that was nuts, that is not even beginning to be the craziest thing revealed in the Trevor Project story. Like, y'all want to learn how the former CEO of the Trevor Project did work for Purdue Pharma to sell opiates during the opioid crisis? Y'all want to learn how the current CEO of the Trevor Project thinks that imposter syndrome is a good diagnosis to have? She is confused why people say imposter syndrome is a bad thing? Do you want to hear about all of the bullshit decisions that have led to this company being millions of dollars in tech, inventing suicidal child robots that only know how to want to die based off of ChatGPT 2, then you can enjoy the Trevor Project articles. At some point, I'll record all of these into a podcast. At some point, I'll say all this stuff out loud so that people can listen along instead of having to read along. But until then, you can learn about what I would consider to be one of the sleeper craziest stories to exist in the queer community that people are just not talking about. And I hope you all think of me when inevitably, eventually, sometime in the next couple of years, there's a massive social reckoning of people going, what the fuck is happening at the Trevor Project? I hope you all will look back and go, oh, Sheri knows. Sheri knew all along. Sheri's been here the whole time. I'm so happy to have a working computer again. I'm so happy to just be able to talk to you all candidly. Please take care. I will see you all soon. Next stream, probably going to be something with Austin to have a good time together on stream. I'm going to see if it's sometime in this coming week. Talk about Trevor, and holy fuck, we're on the European side of the globe. They have no clue. We are outside. They are inside, and they do not know. Oh, God, it's so horrible to watch. But I can't just go around screaming the Trevor Project sucks to everyone without proof. Anyways, I love you all. I'm so glad to have people. I am human, and I am fallible, and I have bad mental health. And to not take that as like, oh, you have to go on hiatus now. Like, I can still do the things I love to do while people acknowledge I'm probably just going to be a little bit insane the whole time. Maybe that's adding to it. I don't know. Take care.